Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Naruto, Orochimaru Disciple, awakened extraordinary enlightenment talent at first. Chapter 61. In view of Tiehuo's performance, each of you who has obtained my secret technique will be planted with a curse seal that keeps secrets, and it is also a curse seal that controls your life and death. If you are willing, then continue to cooperate. If you are not willing, then our cooperation is over. What? Fugaku's face changed drastically, and he looked at him in disbelief. Planting a curse seal that controls life and death, isn't that the same as the main and branch families of the Hyuga clan? Is he trying to treat the Uchiha clan like dogs? How could the Uchiha clan accept such a fate? Fugaku was furious and was about to refuse. Promise him, Captain. The weak Tiehuo grabbed him and stared at him with his bloody empty eyes and growled. Fugaku was stunned by the white hand on his arm due to the force. Tiehuo's firm attitude made him hesitate for a moment. He took a deep breath and said painfully, "Okay, I promise you." After saying that, the whole person seemed to have lost his strength and looked extremely lonely. After making this difficult decision, Fugaku felt that he would rather die than live. Ishihara looked at him deeply, then walked up and directly cast a spell on Uchiha Tiehuo. The improved sealing spell. He added the function of controlling life and death. You can go now. Ishihara took Tiehuo's pair of Mangekyo and turned to walk towards his wooden house. Behind him, Fugaku and others looked at his back with complicated expressions. Tiehuo suddenly spoke and asked respectfully, "Lord Ishihara, if someone from the Uchiha clan wants to open the Mangekyo next time, when will they come to you?" Ishihara paused. 2 days later. Yes. On the way back to Konoha, Fugaku and others said nothing. The group quickly came to Tiehuo's home, and Fugaku called a ninja in the clan who was good at medical ninjutsu to treat Tiehuo. After the treatment was completed, Fugaku asked the other party to keep it secret, and then let him leave. At this time, Uchiha Inahiro looked at Tiehuo and asked loudly, "Why did you ask me to agree to Ishihara's conditions just now? Do you know that in this way, all Uchiha will be controlled by him in the future?" In his opinion, this is simply a great shame. Even if the Uchiha clan was exterminated, they should not be insulted like this. Fugaku sighed, his expression was extremely heavy. You don't think Ishihara will really hand over the Mangekyo training method to us so easily? Even if there is no Tiehuo, he will find other reasons to control. Tiehuo gritted his teeth and said, "The captain is right. I am just an excuse for bad luck. Maybe Ishihara can choose not to cooperate with us, but we Uchiha cannot choose not to cooperate with him. It is related to the survival of the family, and our personal life and death are trivial matters." Fugaku and the other two fell into silence as they watched Tiehuo, who lost his Mangekyo. Tiehuo lost his Mangekyo to protect them. Even they admired this determination. Inahiro, Tetsuhiro is right. For the sake of the family, it is worth sacrificing our freedom. Yashara, I will be the next one to try to open the Mangekyo. CGBB. Fugaku was happy and worried when he saw this scene. Although the family was facing a crisis, the family was more united. At this time, Tetsuhiro suddenly said, "And we are not without the opportunity to get rid of Ishihara's control." Fugaku and the other two were stunned and looked at him expectantly. "Have you found a way?" "No, but we can find a way, and don't forget that the Mangekyo Sharingan can be the eye of the soul. As long as we plan properly, we may be able to open a pair of pupils that can remove control." Tetsuhiro's words stunned Fugaku and the other two. Then the three looked at each other and nodded, and discussed excitedly. "In this case, we should start planning from now on." In the wooden house, after Fugaku and the others left, Ishihara used wood release to restore the forest outside, and then took the Mangekyo back to the room to start researching. As expected, the structure of Tetsuhiro's Mangekyo Sharingan is also different from Fugaku's. These differences are too subtle. After a careful observation, Ishihara couldn't help shaking his head. In fact, he noticed this when he helped Tiehuo open his eyes. He even noticed that the special organs in the brain were slightly different when the Mangekyo opened his eyes. It is this difference that leads to different eye techniques. He has already recorded these information in his mind, so he let Tiehuo leave. Suddenly, Ishihara's eyes flickered, and then he performed the secret technique with a little excitement. Life chain. Buzz. Ishihara's chakra connected himself with the two Mangekyo Sharingan. A wonderful feeling came to his heart, as if he had four eyes. After carefully experiencing the feeling of the Mangekyo Sharingan, he immediately activated the eye technique. Thunder God. Instantly, a stream of chakra belonging to the Mangekyo Sharingan entered his body along with his chakra, and stimulated the chakra in his body to undergo a high-level lightning nature change. Hiss. Ishihara felt a little shocked in his heart when he felt his own state. Because he felt that the lightning chakra in his body was like a part of his body, and he could easily control it to change its shape. This feeling is like controlling one's own limbs, which is incredible. He carefully observed the influence of the Mangekyo Sharingan's pupil power on the lightning chakra, and compared it with the previous knowledge system. Gradually, the flash of inspiration began to appear in his mind and collided. You observed and experienced the Mangekyo pupil technique Thunder God, and you created the secret technique Thunder Chakra Training Method. Thunder Chakra Training Method can greatly improve the nature and form changes of Thunder Chakra. It looks pretty good. Ishihara nodded with satisfaction. This secret technique is not very useful now, but it is necessary to use it in order to further study chakra. Then he looked at the other Mangekyo Sharingan with a bit of surprise. Just now, the pupil technique in the other Mangekyo Sharingan was also stimulated by his special chakra. It is still related to thunder. Thunder God. Ishihara muttered the name that was the same as the other pupil technique. It is not surprising that the two eye techniques have the same name, as Obito's Kamui is like this. What surprised him was the ability of this eye technique. Release the lightning chakra from the focus of vision. This kind of lightning has the special function of paralyzing people. Ishihara thought of Amaterasu at the first time. Amaterasu's black flame is also an attack from the focus of vision, and the black flame also has the special ability to burn everything. Thinking about it, he was not only thoughtful. Amaterasu's black flame is the superior ability of fire escape. Could it be that this special lightning escape is the superior ability of lightning escape? In any case, it is a good thing to discover a special lightning escape chakra. Ishihara hurriedly began to study. With the previous experience, this research progressed quickly. You studied and analyzed the Mangekyo eye technique Thunder God, and you developed the secret technique Thunder God Training Method. Thunder God Training Method. After mastering it, Thunder Escape will have the ability to paralyze the enemy. Closing square bracket. Not bad. Ishihara smiled after digesting the information in his mind. This paralysis ability can actually interrupt the enemy's condensed chakra for a short time. Isn't this interrupting the casting? As long as you master this technique, it will be easy to deal with Obito next time. The effect of Thunder God Chakra seems simple, but it is extremely useful to him. Especially in the case of a fast battle, the fleeting opportunity is enough to determine the victory or defeat of the battle. It is very suitable for him to use. It's just that the practice of this kind of lightning escape requires extremely high requirements. You need to practice the nature and form changes of the lightning escape chakra to the extreme first, and then evolve it again to achieve it. First, the upper level of fire escape, and then the upper level of thunder god of lightning escape appeared. It seems that other types of chakras have to be collected. Thoughts turned in his mind, but Ishihara's research did not stop. He stared at the two Mangekyos with a serious expression. Next, we have to study the curse of the Mangekyo Sharingan. The Mangekyo Sharingan has been sealed since the day it was opened, and eventually became completely blind. And it will also be accompanied by severe pain during use. Ishihara is naturally curious about this phenomenon. He directly connected the Mangekyo with the life chain, and then turned it on. At the same time, the Byakugan vision was turned on and began to observe. Soon he found something unusual. A trace of chakra that was completely different from the pupil power appeared in the Mangekyo Sharingan. This chakra was different from any chakra he had known before. And it was constantly eroding the visual nerves and structures of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Just like a layer of oil film covering the surface of a water pipe, the water pipe gradually aged. But in the early stages of erosion, the water pipe seemed to be strengthened, which strengthened the ability of the Mangekyo Sharingan. With Ishihara's knowledge, he naturally saw it, but this strengthening seemed to exceed the tolerance limit of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Once it reaches the middle and late stages, the Mangekyo Sharingan will inevitably begin to collapse. Completely blind. But Ishihara thought for a long time and didn't see through this chakra. Is it related to the 10 tails again? Ishihara frowned, feeling a little unhappy. Now many of his research routes are blocked by the 10 tails, and he can't study them at all. It's okay in the short term, he still needs to accumulate knowledge and study other secret techniques. But sooner or later he will have to study the 10 tails. It seems that I have to prepare early. Ishihara thought for a while and began to plan in his mind. But at this moment, he suddenly turned his head and looked outside the room. Someone came, and there were quite a few people. He immediately put the Mangekyo Sharingan and the experimental equipment into the seal scroll, and then walked out. Time goes back a little. After leaving home, Itachi immediately rushed to the Hokage building to find the third Hokage and report the information about Ishihara's appearance. Finally, he said with some concern, "Hokage, Ishihara's appearance must have his own purpose, and since he dared to appear in Konoha, I'm afraid he already has a trump card to save his life. How should we treat him?" He knew Ishihara's strength very well. He was already a cage-level strongman before. Even though he had opened the Mangekyo, he was still very afraid of Ishihara. He believed that since Ishihara said he wanted to study his Mangekyo, he must have some knowledge of it and had a way to deal with it. That's why he didn't dare to attack Ishihara. The third Hokage was not worried when he heard this, but was extremely excited. He's finally here. Itachi looked at the excited third Hokage in astonishment and had an ominous premonition in his heart. What are you going to do? The third Hokage smiled and said, "Of course, recruit Ishihara. This kind of genius should belong to Konoha. But he is Orochimaru's disciple, and other people in the village will not agree." Itachi was shocked and hurried to stop it. The third Hokage waved his hand nonchalantly and said confidently, "That's because they don't know Ishihara's ability yet. Once they know Ishihara's talent, not only will they not stop him, but they will urge me to recruit him. As for his identity as Orochimaru's disciple, do you think it's important compared to his talent? Itachi, you have to understand how terrible the help to Konoha will be once Ishihara joins Konoha. If I miss this opportunity, I will be the sinner of Konoha." Looking at the meaningful eyes of the third Hokage, Itachi was speechless. Although he was still young, he also understood the issue of interests. As long as the interests were big enough, let alone Ishihara was only Orochimaru's disciple, even if Orochimaru returned to Konoha, some people might not be unable to do it. Itachi. But, Ishihara may not agree. The third Hokage seemed confident. No matter how smart he is only a 6-year-old child after all, he will join Konoha. The third Hokage had absolute confidence in his brainwashing ability. Not to mention 6 years old, even if he was 16 years old, he could successfully brainwash. Orochimaru did not deserve such a genius disciple. He could only belong to Konoha. Once Ishihara was obtained, Konoha's strength would soar, and it might even reach the grand occasion of the first Hokage period. Imagining a bright future, the third Hokage could not stop smiling. No, we need to let Jiraiya and Tsunade come back. The collision of ideas between the strong and the genius may yield unexpected results. He couldn't wait to start writing letters, and then sent them out to inform Jiraiya and Tsunade who were missing. After doing this, the third Hokage calmed down a lot. But before that, we still have to confirm whether Ishihara is really as talented as you say. The third Hokage began to prepare to meet Ishihara. Itachi opened his mouth, wanting to retort, but looked at the third Hokage's look and said nothing. He didn't think that Ishihara's 10 children were even more mature than him. What's more, he didn't feel that Ishihara would join Konoha. I hope Hokage-sama will not anger Ishihara, otherwise I don't know what will happen. Itachi watched the third Hokage and others leaving the Hokage tower, feeling extremely heavy. Ishihara walked out of the room and looked into the forest. There were more than a dozen figures approaching quickly. Who is it? Swish, brush, brush. Several figures appeared one after another not far in front of him. The third Hokage. Ishihara looked at the short old man in the front with a look of surprise. The dignified leader of Konoha village actually appeared in front of him so grandly. Aren't you afraid of killing him yourself? The third Hokage was very satisfied to see the surprised expression on Ishihara's face. He was not surprised that Ishihara recognized him. After all, Orochimaru was his disciple. But this is the effect he wants. He must be very shocked when his own dignified Hokage comes to see him in person. The third Hokage took a few steps forward with a kind smile on his face and said warmly, "You must be Ishihara. I heard about you from Itachi." 107. At the same time, the Anbu people dispersed in all directions and were on alert. Then the Hokage came to me to avenge you Konoha ninjas. Ishihara looked calm, thinking about his purpose. After all, he had not forgotten that he had killed many Konoha Anbu. Those Anbu looked at him with murderous eyes. The third Hokage paused, feeling a little embarrassed. He was so excited that he forgot all about it. There are Anbu people watching around, so it needs to be dealt with. He immediately became serious. Of course I will handle this matter, but I want to know the purpose of coming to Konoha as a dangerous person like you. Ishihara raised his eyebrows and said with a half smile, "This seems to have nothing to do with the Hokage. You are too dangerous. Since you appear in Konoha, of course I can't ignore you." The third Hokage's face was solemn, and he felt something bad in his heart. Things turned out differently than he expected. Staring at Ishihara's eyes, he felt like he was being seen through. This feeling made him very uncomfortable. "What does the Hokage want?" Ishihara asked, narrowing his eyes. He didn't really care about Konoha. As long as it doesn't prevent him from studying those secret techniques, forbidden techniques and blood inheritance limits, it will be fine. The third Hokage took a deep breath, thoughts racing in his mind. The other party is not as easy to deal with as he thought, and he needs to change his thinking. "This matter is not urgent. I got some information about you from Itachi. I heard that you have developed many S-level secret techniques." He stared at Ishihara closely as he spoke. "That's right." Shi Yuan somewhat understood the other party's purpose, and said impatiently, "Hokage, if you have anything to say, just say it directly. I don't like this roundabout way of talking. Do you want the secret technique I developed?" The third Hokage was stunned, a little uncomfortable with this straightforward way of speaking, and nodded stiffly. Ishihara stretched out a hand. "Okay, what is the Hokage going to trade for?" If he could obtain those secret techniques and forbidden techniques through trading, then he would be willing to save some trouble. The third Hokage took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "No need to trade. I think another way might be good for both of us." Ishihara looked at him without speaking. "I hope you will join Konoha," the third Hokage said solemnly. Ishihara suddenly showed surprise when he heard this. Seeing this, the third Hokage breathed a sigh of relief and said hurriedly, "After joining Konoha, as long as you have my consent, you can see any secret or forbidden techniques you want. Konoha is the ninja village with the most secret arts and forbidden arts in the ninja world. The secret arts left by the first and second generation Hokage, don't you want to study them? No one else can see these secret techniques even if they want to, but you can see them at any time with my permission. The secret technique you develop will affect Konoha and even the entire ninja world, making you a great legend like the first Hokage." The third Hokage tried his best to persuade, his words were spitting and his face turned red. "It's ideal, it's revenge, it's the first Hokage. It's totally an inducement." Ishihara was not excited yet, but the third Hokage was really excited. However, Ishihara did not speak when he heard this. Instead, he looked at him as if he were a fool and said jokingly, "Any more requests?" The third Hokage didn't notice the look in his eyes. Hearing this, he thought he was moved, and he immediately became energetic. Since these secret techniques were developed based on the village's secret techniques, of course they must be handed over to the village for safekeeping. "But don't worry, Konoha won't treat you badly." Ishihara was completely speechless. In his previous life, he had heard that antiques had to be turned in, but he had never experienced this. "I didn't expect that I would have to hand over my secret skills in this life. It's really ridiculous." "What else?" The third Hokage still didn't come back to his senses. "Also, the secret techniques you developed before must be handed over to Konoha." The sound stopped suddenly. He looked at Ishihara who was teasing him with a stiff face. He knew that he was being played for a fool and was immediately furious. "Keep talking, why don't you continue?" The third Hokage's face flushed. Just as he was about to speak, Ishihara interrupted him. "Do I need your permission to see the secret technique?" Do I have to hand in the secret technique I developed to Konoha? Do I have to hand in the secret technique I developed before to Konoha? Are you stupid enough to say such a thing? Ishihara's voice became louder and louder, and he couldn't help but get angry in the end. Is the third Hokage's IQ in arrears or something? He can actually say such stupid things. The third Hokage stared at Ishihara angrily, secretly regretting that he should not be so anxious. But he did not think that his conditions were wrong, or that these conditions were necessary. Konoha's secrets and forbidden techniques are not so easy to obtain. The third Hokage said coldly. If you don't agree to these conditions, do you think it is impossible to get Konoha's secrets and forbidden techniques? Ishihara pouted and said, what a coincidence, I don't care, as long as the various ninja families trade with me. The third Hokage sneered and said firmly, no family will give you the family secrets, you can give up this idea. The family secrets are the foundation of a family, and no family will do things that cut off the roots. But at this moment, a voice came. My Uchiha clan is willing to give him the secrets. The third Hokage's face changed drastically, and he looked in the direction of the voice in shock. Ishihara was also a little surprised, turned his head and looked, and his eyebrows raised immediately. I saw a large group of people, led by Uchiha Fugaku, running towards me from a distance. Uchiha clan, Hyuga clan, Sarutobi clan, Hyuga clan, Nara clan, Yamanaka clan, Akamichi clan, Inazuka clan, Aburame clan. All the famous clans in Konoha seemed to have come. Fugaku stood at the front of the team with a cold expression. Others in the team were shocked and looked at him in amazement. Clan leader Fugaku, what are you talking about? Hyuga Hiyashi looked at Fugaku in shock, feeling that he must have heard it wrong. The same was true for the clan leaders of other clans. I said, my Uchiha clan is willing to give the secret technique to Ishihara and make a deal. Fugaku was relieved when he saw Ishihara's calm expression, and he laughed at the third-generation Hokage who was full of shock and anger. Asshole, how dare you Uchiha clan? The third Hokage stared at Fugaku with his eyes spitting fire, wishing to tear him apart alive. He thought that even if his plan failed, he still had a chance to let Ishihara join Konoha. But Fugaku's words completely ruined his plan. Clan leader Fugaku, calm down. Don't be impulsive. This is a family secret technique, how can you hand it over so easily? The others finally confirmed that they had not heard wrong, and they were all shocked. No matter what their relationship with Uchiha was, they all dissuaded him. Although they didn't know why Fugaku did this, they didn't want to have such a bad start, fearing that it would cause other families to follow suit, and then it would be a mess. Fugaku ignored these clan leaders, but came to the third Hokage and provoked. This is the family secret technique of our Uchiha clan. You don't need the consent of the Hokage to deal with it, right? The third Hokage was so angry that he cursed. Asshole, are you crazy? The Uchiha clan will not agree with your decision. You are simply bringing shame to the Uchiha clan. Fugaku looked at the third Hokage who was so angry that he laughed instead. If the Uchiha clan was exterminated, I'm afraid these secret techniques would be cheap for Konoha and the top leaders. It's better to give it to Ishihara to gamble instead. After figuring this out, Fugaku returned home and immediately took out the secret technique and brought it here. But he didn't expect that the third Hokage, who had not left Konoha for a long time, also came here. And the actions of the third Hokage attracted the attention of the major families in Konoha. When they saw Fugaku walking in this direction, they followed him. You guys forced the Uchiha to this point, Fugaku said with gritted teeth, causing the third Hokage's face to change drastically. What are you talking about? Don't think I don't know what you want to do, I won't let you succeed. Fugaku said firmly, then turned to look at Ishihara and handed him a scroll. This is the secret technique and forbidden technique promised to you. Ishihara took it and opened it, and immediately narrowed his eyes, a little surprised. Izanami. Fugaku nodded, and said proudly, yes, this is the sincerity of the Uchiha clan. Others didn't react yet. Hinata Hiyashi, who also has a long heritage, was shocked and said in a lost voice. Clan leader Fugaku, are you crazy? You even handed over a forbidden technique like Izanami. After reading the family records, he knew that this was definitely the Uchiha clan's most hidden forbidden technique. It's a taboo among taboos. But now Fugaku has brought it out like this. It's simply crazy. Fugaku shook his head and sighed. Why don't you think about what is worth my Uchiha forbidden technique? Why does our Hokage come here to meet people secretly? Are we both crazy? Hyuga Hiyashi and others were stunned, and then looked at the third Hokage inquiringly. But the third Hokage frowned and didn't seem to want to say it. Fugaku glanced at Ishihara obscurely, and sneered when he saw that he didn't object. It seems that our Hokage is still planning to hide it, so let me introduce you to this person in front of you. Then he told the information about Ishihara provided by Itachi. Hyuga Hiyashi and others naturally didn't believe it. After all, the information was too outrageous. After hearing this, they felt that Fugaku was fooled by Ishihara. Fugaku didn't care at all, but looked at Ishihara with some expectation. Whether you believe it or not is your own business. I have verified this matter myself, so I sent the forbidden technique. I just hope that Mr. Ishihara can help improve Izanami. The third generation Hokage was immediately angry. After Fugaku said this, Ishihara's affairs could no longer be concealed. More importantly, he actually wanted to hand over the terrible forbidden technique of Izanami to Ishihara, which was absolutely not allowed. Fugaku, you have to think clearly. It's ridiculous to hand over the forbidden technique to an unknown person, not to mention that he is a big snake. The third generation Hokage was completely anxious. He must not let Uchiha and Ishihara join forces, the hidden danger is too terrible. Fugaku directly waved his hand to interrupt him. Hokage, Mr. Ishihara has mastered the space-time ninjutsu. While speaking, he looked at the third generation Hokage meaningfully. Sure enough, the third generation Hokage stopped talking when he heard this. Mastering the space-time ninjutsu means that Ishihara can leave Konoha at any time, and may also appear in Konoha at any time. Even if he said that Ishihara was Orochimaru's disciple, he could not threaten him, but would anger Ishihara. Ishihara looked at the two with a smile, which made Fugaku feel cold in his heart. He was indeed afraid that the third Hokage would anger Ishihara, which might make Uchiha's plan go down the drain, so he interrupted him. The reason why Ishihara looked at him was because the forbidden technique turned out to be Izanami instead of Izanagi. I don't know if it was intentional or if he had other ideas. He looked at Fugaku deeply. It seems that this guy really knows my purpose. Fugaku brought so many families here, I'm afraid he wanted to drag them down to get their secrets. In this case, let's fulfill his wish. Ishihara picked up the scroll and read it carefully, then closed his eyes. Izanami is not very complicated, but rather simple, and uses the simplest illusion principle. But its strength lies in the restraint it gains in exchange for the blindness of the Mangekyo, which is far beyond the reach of ordinary illusions. Ishihara's illusion has long reached the level of the Mangekyo illusion, and it can even be said that he is the strongest illusionist in the ninja world. It is not difficult to develop a ninjutsu similar to the cycle effect of Izanami, and it soon took shape. You read Izanami. You adjusted the power of Izanami based on your own illusion background and experience, and reduced the cost. You created the secret technique Izanami weakened version. Izanami weak version. After use, you can trap the enemy in a strong cycle illusion, which is extremely difficult to solve. Side effect. Can only be used once in a short period of time. You created the illusion Izanami weakened version, your illusion background has increased. You suddenly realize that your illusion space has integrated Izanami's ability and its power has greatly increased. Not bad, not bad. Ishihara smiled with satisfaction. The weakened version of Izanami is still very terrifying. By constructing a special cycle illusion similar to Izanami, the person who planted the technique cannot get out. The effect is much stronger than the illusion cast by the ordinary kaleidoscope. But the same consumption of pupil power is also more. But this illusion merged with his illusion space. Not only did it strengthen his illusion space itself, and using the illusion space to cast Izanami does not require the Mangekyo Sharingan, as long as the mental power is sufficient, there is no time interval requirement. It's perfect. Ishihara smiled and nodded at Fugaku. Okay. Is it over? Fugaku looked at him in astonishment. Even though he had seen Ishihara's horror before, he was still a little shocked at this moment. This is Izanami, one of the top forbidden techniques of the Uchiha clan. It can even be said to be one of the top forbidden techniques in the ninja world. But it took Ishihara only so much time to create a new secret technique. Here you go. Ishihara happily wrote his modified version directly on the scroll of Izanami. Fugaku stood by and stared at every word he wrote. The more he read, the happier he became. He was so happy when he saw the end. Too strong. Although the power is a little weaker, you don't have to pay the price of blindness. And the power of this illusion is definitely not comparable to ordinary illusions. Ha 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 ha, as expected, it's right to cooperate with Ishihara. The third Hokage and Hyuga Hiyashi and others frowned as they watched this scene. In their hearts, they didn't want to believe that Ishihara really developed a secret technique. But at this moment, they couldn't help but look at the scroll eagerly, and even moved forward. Get out! This is the secret technique of the Uchiha clan. Fugaku immediately roared with his eyes wide open. Hyuga Hiyashi and others laughed dryly and stepped back a few steps, looking at each other and whispering. Do you think this is true or false? Do you believe it? To be able to learn an ordinary ninjutsu in such a short time is a top genius, but just now. But Uchiha Fugaku's expression doesn't look fake. Why don't you try it? A group of people were tickled by Fugaku's excitement. If Ishihara could really improve the forbidden technique, they would naturally be tempted. But the family secrets are the top secrets of each family, and no one wants to give them to others. So although they were tempted, no one was willing to try in the end. The third Hokage's eyes moved back and forth between Fugaku and Ishihara, and his heart was hard to calm down. This was the first time he witnessed how terrifying Ishihara's talent was. Although he was reluctant to believe it, thinking of the information he had collected, the third Hokage had to admit that this was probably true. Ishihara's talent is far beyond my expectations, no wonder he rejected my proposal. As long as he is given a few years, he can easily get any secret technique he wants. The third Hokage thought of this and suddenly felt awe in his heart. This kind of person can either be a friend, or if he is an enemy, he must immediately do his best to kill him. However, Ishihara has mastered the space-time ninjutsu. Thinking of this, the third Hokage couldn't help but feel a little powerless. He understood how terrible the mobility of space-time ninjutsu was. If there was no entanglement, it would be almost impossible to catch such a person. Can't be an enemy of Ishihara. The thought flashed through the mind of the third Hokage, and he immediately felt extremely regretful, regretting that he had just had such a bad relationship with Ishihara. But it was more of a humiliation. He was the leader of the Konoha village, the leader of the 5 major ninja villages, the Hokage. Now he was afraid before the battle, and even wanted to bow his head. His pride would not allow him to do so. Looking at the excited Fugaku with a smile on his face, the third Hokage looked even more solemn. The Uchiha clan had already taken the lead and he had to make a decision as soon as possible. Go back to Konoha to hold a high-level meeting. Even if he was the Hokage, he couldn't make the decision on this kind of thing. He still had to convince the other 3 old friends, Danzo, Menyan, and Kaharu. But now he must express his position, otherwise Ishihara will favor the Uchiha clan. This is not a good thing for the top management of Konoha who are already at loggerheads with Uchiha. Ishihara, please think about the proposal I just made. If you have any conditions, you can put it forward for discussion. The third Hokage tried his best to make his expression less stiff, forced a smile and stepped forward. Wasn't Master Hokage very tough just now? Fugaku glanced at him, then sneered disdainfully. He naturally saw that the third Hokage bowed his head. Suddenly, he no longer felt that there was anything wrong with Uchiha bowing to Ishihara. Instead, I felt like I had a head start. This foresight made him a little excited. The third Hokage glared at him fiercely, and then said warmly to Ishihara, "Diaresis, I'll go back and hold a meeting to discuss it first." Then he left in a hurry. Seeing this scene, Hinata, Hazu and others looked at each other, and then looked solemn. Could it be that the scene just now is true? The actions of the third Hokage have undoubtedly illustrated this point. Everyone looked at Ishihara with extremely shocked eyes. Gudong. Someone swallowed his saliva and said in a hoarse voice, "This person's talent is too terrifying." It's more than terrifying. I'm afraid the pattern of the ninja world will change. Nara Shikaku sighed and said, even as smart as he is, he can't imagine how far such a person will go in the future. Looking at Ishihara, he seemed to see Ishihara dominating the world in the future. Several people looked at each other, a little at a loss. Are you going to hand over the secret technique? I won't. No matter how the pattern of the ninja world changes, our families will never disappear. I have to think about it. The heads of several families seemed hesitant. Nara Shikaku sighed again. He personally tended to cooperate with Ishihara, but he also needed the top leaders of the family to decide together. Hinata Hiyashi looked at Fugaku with a complicated expression, and then looked at Ishihara. If he can really do it, maybe he should give it a try. The Hyuga clan has many secrets, and most of them are only known by him, the head of the clan. The more he knew, the more doubts he had in his heart. Did the Hyuga clan come from the moon? Are there more inheritances there? Hyuga Hiyashi looked up at the shadow of the moon in the sky, and his eyes gradually became firm. Perhaps it is time to solve these doubts. Fugaku and the patriarchs of the major families left quickly. Today's events have given them too much of a shock, and they all need to go back and discuss and make a decision as soon as possible. The development of things is somewhat beyond expectations, and Ishihara also needs to think about it. Originally, he planned to slowly seek these secrets and forbidden techniques of Konoha, and at the same time spend time practicing to improve his own strength. But now it seems that the speed of obtaining these secrets and forbidden techniques may be easier than he imagined. Anyway, he is not in a hurry, and calmly goes back to continue studying the Mangekyo. But Konoha can't calm down at this moment. The third generation of Hokage, as well as the patriarchs of the major ninja families, have joined forces, and such a big movement naturally attracted the attention of the entire Konoha. Some even suspected that the war was about to break out again. All kinds of opinions were noisy, causing the atmosphere of the whole Konoha to be somewhat uneasy and turbulent. But the people of the major families did not care at all. After returning to Konoha, they immediately held a family meeting. When the third Hokage returned to the Hokage building, Danzo, Koharu Uchiha, and En Mitokado, who had already been alarmed, were already waiting for him. As soon as he walked into the office, Koharu Uchiha asked dissatisfiedly. Hiruzen, where have you been? Why did you cause such a big commotion? The whole village is a little turbulent. The third Hokage frowned slightly and walked to the window position to look out. He immediately saw a large number of Konoha ninjas whispering on the streets of Konoha, and they were slowly approaching the Hokage building. It just so happens that I have something to find you, and I need your decision. He sighed, rubbed his eyebrows with a headache, sat down in his seat and looked at the three old friends with different expressions. Mizudomen En looked solemn. What happened this time? Is it that Uchiha is going to take action? Although Shisui died some time ago, the Uchiha clan was quiet for a while. But they never let down their guard. Instead, they were on edge, always on guard against the madness that the Uchiha clan might go crazy at any time. Danzo was immediately refreshed when he heard this. He planned the affairs of the Uchiha clan. Could it be that he finally pushed the Uchiha clan to the limit? It's not Uchiha. The third Hokage shook his head, and Danzo was a little disappointed. Uchiha, Koharu and Mizudomen En breathed a sigh of relief, and then they were a little confused. What's going on? This time, the matter may be more serious than that of Uchiha. The third Hokage looked solemn. CGBB, Danzo and the other two suddenly felt depressed and looked at the past intently. The third Hokage asked, do you remember the heavy casualties of Kakashi and Itachi when they were on a mission some time ago? Of course I remember. My roots lost several people, but you asked Itachi and Kakashi to keep it a secret, and we still don't know the details. Danzo said angrily. As a high-ranking official in Konoha, he was unable to find out the cause of his subordinate's death. He wrote it down in his little notebook. The third Hokage. This incident is related to that incident. Then he stopped keeping the secret and directly told the information he got from Itachi and what happened today. Listening to Ishihara's information, the faces of Danzo and the other two changed from shock to disbelief, and finally to silence. The office was quiet. Uchiha Koharu hesitated and said, Hiruzen, it's not that we don't believe you, it's really that what you said is a bit too outrageous. Developed a large number of S-level secrets. Suspected of mastering the Thunder Chakra mode of the Cloud Village. Possessing the strength comparable to the Cage level. Suspected of mastering the space-time ninjutsu. Improve the Uchiha forbidden technique Izanami in a few minutes. And the one who did this was just a 6-year-old boy. She thought it was unreliable no matter how she looked at it. The third Hokage looked solemn. Although it is indeed unbelievable, after my personal verification, this is very likely to be true. The most important thing is that the Uchiha clan has contacted Ishihara now. You should know how disadvantageous this is for us. The Uchiha clan and the Konoha high level may break out in war at any time. This is what he is most worried about. Mizudomen, what are you worried about? The third Hokage took a deep breath, stared at the three people and said in a deep voice, I am worried that Ishihara will help the Uchiha clan open the Mangekyo. This is impossible. After the voice fell, Utane Kaharu and Mizudomen immediately refuted. That is the Mangekyo Sharingan. Even the Uchiha clan can't do it. How can Ishihara, an outsider, do it? It's simply a fantasy. The third Hokage pulled the corner of his mouth. He can develop the Sharingan himself. Is it really impossible for him to help the Uchiha clan open the Mangekyo? Utane Kaharu and Mizudomen were silent when they heard this. If the information is true, it is indeed possible. Thinking of this, the two looked at each other, and their hearts were suddenly filled with uneasiness. Hiruzen, what are you going to do? The third Hokage smacked his cigarette holder, exhaled a puff of smoke, and said in a faint voice, I want to cooperate with Ishihara. And then be a dog for Ishihara. Danzo's cold voice startled the third Hokage, and then he became furious. Bullshit, what nonsense are you talking about? Isn't it? Danzo stared at him coldly and asked, if Ishihara really has that ability, don't you think there is no need to pay a price for cooperating with him? Don't be so naive, Hiruzen, think about how we treat the civilian ninjas of Konoha, think about the Hyuga family's clan and division system. Think again what we Konoha have done to protect our own ninjutsu. If you want to cooperate with Ishihara, don't you have to be his dog? The office fell completely silent, with only Danzo's angry roar echoing. After going to bed, Kaharu and Mito Kadoyan looked at the furious Danzo and did not dare to speak. The third Hokage stared at Danzo with rapid breathing, gritted his teeth and said, do you think I want to? Ishihara has mastered the time and space ninjutsu, there is nothing we can do against him. If he is allowed to cooperate with other ninja villages, what will happen to Konoha then? Danzo's expression was cold and decisive. He slapped the table hard and said angrily, how do you know that Uchiha Fugaku is not deceiving you? Who can prove that Ishihara has mastered the time and space ninjutsu? You panicked without verification. Hiruzen, you let me down so much. And what if he masters the space-time ninjutsu? Didn't the second generation master leave behind several ideas for combating space-time ninjutsu? Don't forget your ghoul seal. As long as you have a moment's chance, you can kill Ishihara. Gone. The third Hokage stared at Danzo with blazing eyes. I'm the one who wants to use the corpse-killing technique, not you, right? Do you really want me to die? The third generation angrily said. Then have you ever thought about the consequences if Ishihara is allowed to escape? Have you ever thought about the consequences of Ishihara and Uchiha's cooperation? Have you ever thought about what strength Ishihara will be in a few years? If he takes revenge on Konoha, how will you deal with him? He stood up with so much momentum that Danzo couldn't help but wipe his face with spittle flying everywhere. The third Hokage took a deep breath and softened his tone. Do you think I want to keep Ishihara as an unstable factor? It's because there are too many unknown factors in getting rid of him and the danger is too great. Once it fails, the consequences will be disastrous. But if we cooperate with him, Konoha's strength will be further enhanced, and the terms of cooperation can continue to be negotiated. If we really can't reach an agreement, then think of other ways. The office was quiet again. The four of them were silent. After turning to bed, Kaharu and Mito Kadoyan looked at each other and said, Danzo, why don't we let Hiruzen go talk to him first? They are old and want stability in everything and don't want to cause more trouble. Danzo said coldly, I don't agree with this matter. You will definitely regret it if you do this. After speaking, he turned around and left angrily. In the office, the third Hokage was relieved to have the support of Kaharu and Mito Manabu. Leave Ishihara's affairs to me. However, although Fugaku has verified it before, to be cautious, we also need to verify his talent. After all, Those secret techniques and forbidden techniques are Konoha's most important secrets. Kaharu and Mito Manabu nodded as they went to bed. On the other side, Danzo quickly returned to the root organization base after leaving the Hokage Tower. At this time, the anger on his face had disappeared, replaced by shrewdness and coldness. What happened to the information on Ishihara that you were asked to investigate? Brush. An Anbu from the root organization appeared. There is still very little information, and most of the information has been blocked by Hokage-sama. Danzo's eyes flashed. This is not surprising. Let people pay attention. Once Ishihara enters Konoha, immediately monitor him. Yes. Danzo touched his bandaged right eye with a cold smile on his face. If Ishihara's talent is really as terrifying as Hiruzen said, it would be worth wasting an opportunity to be a different god for him. After hearing the information from Ishihara just now, Danzo was immediately moved. That kind of terrifying understanding, once it is in your own hands, is simply a divine help. Becoming Hokage is not easy. But now the relationship between Konoha and Uchiha is a bit delicate, and he has to keep other gods just in case. Hiruzen, don't you want to be Ishihara's dog? Then I will appreciate it after I control Ishihara. Danzo had a grim smile on his face. His anger just now was real. He would never allow Konoha's secret techniques and forbidden techniques to be controlled by an uncontrolled outsider. The Akamichi clan, the Yamazaka clan, the Inuzuka clan, the Aburame clan. All families quickly made their decisions. Except for the Hyuga family, which is extremely resistant, most other families have a wait-and-see attitude. After all, the family secrets are related to their roots and cannot be easily shown to others. At this time, the Uchiha clan. A family meeting was also held after Fugaku returned. Itachi also participated. Since it was a temporary clan meeting, it was held in the secret room of Fugaku's house. All three elders of the Uchiha clan were present. Among them, the great elder has gray hair and a hideous scar on his face. The second elder and the third elder also look like middle-aged men, with cold and determined faces. There are also 8 squad captains of the police force. And all the 3 Magatama elites, a total of more than a dozen people. And these are all the high-level officials of the Uchiha clan. Clan leader, why did I hear that you met with the Hokage and the clan leaders of the major families? Is the Hokage going to attack us? The elder shouted angrily before everyone arrived. As soon as this was said, it immediately aroused the anger of others. The second elder shouted immediately, assholes, are the third generation and Danzo going to force us Uchiha to death? Fight them. Itachi stood beside Fugaku and sighed in his heart when he saw the angry clan members. Is it true that the grudge between the Uchiha and the Konoha high-level officials cannot be resolved? Fugaku shook his head with a solemn expression. It has nothing to do with the Hokage. I called you here for something else this time. Then he shouted to the outside of the door, Iron Fire, come in. As soon as the voice fell, the door of the secret room was opened. Inahori and Yusei walked in with Iron Fire, who had bandages wrapped around his eyes. Boom. The faces of the people in the secret room changed immediately. Many people even activated their Sharingan and saw the situation of Tiehuo through their chakra. The elder stood up in shock. Tiehuo, why are your eyes gone? Tiehuo pursed his lips, his body trembling a little. My Sharingan was dug out. What? The Uchiha in the secret room was immediately furious. The elder roared. Who is it? Tell me, I will kill him. The second elder. Who dares to dig out the Sharingan, no matter who he is dead. The third elder. Is it the Hokage or Danzo? Itachi also showed a look of shock on his face. He also suspected in his heart that it was done by the Konoha high level. But if that's the case, then the Uchiha who just lost Shisui will probably go completely crazy. War will be inevitable. What's going on? Itachi was extremely anxious. Tiehuo. It's Ishihara. Is it him? Itachi's pupils shrank suddenly, and his heart was difficult to calm down. Why did Ishihara want to dig out Tiehuo's Sharingan? What on earth does this guy want to do? Looking at Tiehuo's expression of trying hard to suppress certain emotions, he had an ominous premonition in his heart. But the others didn't know who Ishihara was at all, and they shouted angrily to kill Ishihara. Tiehuo continued. And before my Sharingan was dug out, I had already opened the Mangekyo Sharingan. Boom. The whole secret room was completely blown up. They just lost Shisui who opened the Mangekyo. Now someone finally opened the Mangekyo, and they didn't have time to be happy, but their eyes were dug out. It's simply courting death. Kill him, Ishihara must be killed, and the Mangekyo is taken back. If he messes with our Uchiha clan, he's dead. Tiehuo, tell us where he is. The crowd was indignant. No one was not angry. Since Shisui's death, the Uchiha clan has been very depressed, like a barrel of explosives that can be ignited at any time. Now, it's lit. Itachi stared at Tiehuo in a daze, with a cold sweat on his body. Tiehuo actually opened the Mangekyo, and it was taken away by Ishihara. Could it be that he came for the Mangekyo Sharingan? Thinking of the fact that he had met Ishihara face to face not long ago, he couldn't help but feel a little scared. But his heart was still full of doubts. He knew the conditions for opening the Mangekyo Sharingan very well. There was no major event in the clan recently. How did Tiehuo open his eyes? Could it be Ishihara? Itachi's pupils shrank suddenly and he held his breath. Itachi stared at Tiehuo intently. Ishihara also helped me open my Mangekyo Sharingan. Tiehuo's voice was not loud. But when the voice fell, the whole secret room became dead silent. Itachi's eyes widened instantly. It turned out to be him. The elder stared at him in a daze. What did you say just now? Tiehuo said excitedly. I said that Ishihara also helped me open my Mangekyo. What's going on? Why can Ishihara help you open the Mangekyo? How did he do it? Why did he dig out your Mangekyo? The elder and others asked hurriedly. Tiehuo took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down, then told him about what he saw when Ishihara and Itachi came into contact, and then the Mangekyo knot was dug out. Finally, Tiehuo said, Big Jong can check my memory and verify the authenticity. After Fugaku assured that what Tiehuo said was true, the three elders checked and looked at Tiehuo's memory, and finally confirmed it. It's true, Ishihara can let us open the Mangekyo Sharingan. Suddenly, the whole secret room was boiling. Some people scolded Ishihara, some were excited, and some wanted to find Ishihara to open the Mangekyo. After all, this is a Mangekyo. No Uchiha can resist this temptation, even if the price is extremely terrifying. So much so that even the news that Fugaku opened the Mangekyo, which should have been very shocking in the past, was not mentioned at this moment. The elder looked at Fugaku and asked unwillingly, Patriarch, if we want to open the Mangekyo, can we only be Ishihara's puppets? Fugaku nodded bitterly. If there were any other way, how could the proud Uchiha bow his head? Fugaku took a deep breath and said coldly, the conflict between us and the Konoha high-level officials is already very serious. Once they know that Ishihara can help us open the Mangekyo, they will greatly fear the Uchiha, and the conflict will inevitably intensify. They may attack us at any time. So we have no other choice now. Although the elders and others were unwilling, they also knew that he was telling the truth. Fugaku looked at the people with different expressions and said in a deep voice, Everyone should understand the current situation of Uchiha, but I will not force you to make a choice. You already know the price of opening the Mangekyo Sharingan. Whoever wants to open the Mangekyo can come to me later. The clan meeting was disbanded. But the people who attended the meeting could not calm down. They needed to think carefully before making a decision. Soon, only Fugaku and Itachi were left in the meeting room. Fugaku said in a deep voice, Itachi, you also attended the clan meeting just now. Tell me what you think now. Itachi looked a little complicated. He didn't expect that Fugaku had already opened the Mangekyo. And now that Ishihara is involved, the complexity of the whole thing has increased by who knows how many times. It's no longer something he can control. He thought for a while and said, there will definitely be many people in the family who will open the Mangekyo, but once Konoha knows this information, it will inevitably conflict with Uchiha again. And those who pay a huge price to open the Mangekyo will definitely not let go of the Konoha high-level officials. A coup. I'm afraid it will definitely happen. After saying this, Itachi felt a little powerless. Unless the Konoha high-level officials take action against Uchiha immediately, otherwise this is an inevitable outcome. But without sufficient reasons, the Konoha high-level officials cannot take action against Uchiha at all. This is an unsolvable situation. Fugaku nodded when he heard this. Although he didn't deduce it, he also knew how dangerous the future would be. He said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, I will make a deal with Ishihara and let you open the Mangekyo at all costs." Itachi's expression became more complicated when he heard this. He had already opened the kaleidoscope, but still had no intention of telling anyone. He bowed his head slightly and said, "Thank you, father." Fugaku, it might not be safe for you in Anbu recently, so don't go to Anbu for the time being. Itachi suddenly frowned. Father, if I don't go, the Hokage and Danzo will definitely become suspicious. And I can get more information over there. Fugaku was a little hesitant when he heard this, but looking at Itachi's stubborn eyes, he finally agreed. He patted Itachi on the shoulder and said, "Itachi, be careful. You will have to work hard for the information from Konoha's top brass next." Itachi lowered his head, nothing. After leaving the Uchiha clan. As the Hokage's guard, Itachi immediately entered the Hokage tower and went alone to meet the third Hokage, who was having a meeting with Koharu Mitotoin, who had transferred to his dormitory. Although he knew that the situation was out of control, he still wanted to know the attitude of the third Hokage to see if there was any room for change. "Lord Hokage, the Uchiha clan." Itachi knelt down on one knee, respectfully reported all the information, and then waited without saying a word. The third Hokage and Koharu Mitotoin, who was sleeping, looked at each other with extremely solemn expressions. Ishihara can actually make Uchiha people activate the Mangekyo Sharingan. What a monster. Very shocked by this though. But they are more concerned about Uchiha's movements, and they actually want to open more kaleidoscopes. And Uchiha Fugaku has actually turned on the kaleidoscope. "Hokage-sama, what do you plan to do?" Itachi asked in a low voice. After sleeping, Koharu and Mito Kadeni winked at the third Hokage. The third Hokage looked at Itachi with dark eyes and sighed in his heart. At such a critical moment and in such a complicated situation, he did not dare to believe Itachi easily. "Don't worry, as long as Konoha's strength continues to grow, Uchiha will not dare to mess around. You can return to the Uchiha clan for the time being and continue to collect information about Uchiha." Itachi's face changed slightly when he heard this. He knew that the third Hokage no longer trusted him. But he didn't say anything, and retreated respectfully, standing at the door of the Hokage tower and turning around with a complicated expression. It seems that this battle is unavoidable. Hyuga clan. After returning to the family, Hyuga Hazu immediately held a clan meeting and explained the matter to the elders of the clan. But there was a fierce quarrel at the clan meeting. For the Hyuga clan, the most conservative in the ninja world, they would never allow the family's secret techniques to be spread. He even scorned the improved secret technique of Hinata Hazatsu. The angry Hinata was furious and could only accept the family's decision. "You will regret it." Nara clan. The clan meeting held by Shikaku was much calmer. Most of their family are smart people, and after listening to Shikaku's words, they already understood that Ishihara is the general trend. Judging from Uchiha Fugaku's performance, I'm afraid he has been in contact with Ishihara before us, and he may have been defeated. Lu Julang analyzed quietly, but some people are hesitant to hand over their family's secrets. The situation of the Uchiha clan is different from ours. They are almost driven to a dead end. But we are not that anxious. Besides, we don't know what Ishihara's conditions are yet, so we should wait. Lu Ju frowned when he heard this. Ishihara is a smart man. Perhaps only the first family to make a deal with him will pay attention. If we don't do the first one, even if we hand over the family secrets, the conditions won't be much better. I'm afraid that while we are still hesitating, someone is already ready to do it. Now the elder who had just spoken began to hesitate again. "Clan leader, you make the decision." Early the next morning, Ishihara looked a little surprised at the figure that appeared in front of him. Kurenai Yuhi, and his senior sister Anko Mitarashi, who are both Orochimaru's disciples. "Are you Orochimaru's disciple?" Anko looked at Ishihara with complicated eyes. She is the only disciple that Orochimaru accepts, and she admires Orochimaru extremely. Even after Orochimaru defected and fled Konoha, she still retained this yearning in her heart, and even complained about why Orochimaru didn't leave with her and abandoned her. So after knowing that Ishihara was Orochimaru's disciple, Anko felt a little bit disgusted. "You are senior sister Hondu." Ishihara raised his eyebrows and smiled. He has almost no feelings for people in this world, with the exception of Orochimaru. So I was very happy to see Hongdu. I am no longer the disciple of that traitor Orochimaru. Enko said angrily, staring at him with big eyes. Ishihara could tell at a glance that there was something wrong with her words, and couldn't help but feel a little funny. No matter how old you are, you still look like a child. The corner of his mouth raised slightly. Teacher has improved the curse seal a lot recently, and he also said that he would find an opportunity to improve it for you. Really? Hongdu asked hurriedly, then came back to his senses and curled his lips. Who cares? You should be able to see the teacher soon, Ishihara said with a smile. Enko's face suddenly changed slightly, and she was a little worried. After all, Big Snake Maru is still Konoha's rebellious ninja. Ishihara said no more. He also knew that all the people in Konoha ignored this when they communicated with him, but this was an unchangeable fact. However, he knew that Orochimaru's strength was advancing by leaps and bounds, and it would not be long before he would no longer be afraid of Konoha. At that time, Orochimaru would definitely return to Konoha. I wonder what you came to see me for. Ishihara looked at Yuhi Kurenai, who was smiling gently beside him. The Hokage sent us to invite Mr. Ishihara to live in Konoha, saying that this was Konoha's sincerity. Yuhi Kurenai said hurriedly. Her eyes fell on Ishihara with some curiosity and shock. Especially when she thought of the information said by the third Hokage, it felt difficult to connect it with the handsome and gentle young man in front of her. They were not just two people, but also followed by two teams of Anbu. When Yuhi Kurenai spoke, these people's eyes were focused on Ishihara, constantly observing him. Ishihara smiled faintly when he heard this. Then let's go. With that said, he walked out. Yuhi Hong and Anko looked startled when they heard this, and then hurried forward. Anko walked beside him, looking at him frequently, revealing worry and anxiety. Seeing this, Ishihara shook his head inwardly. This cheap senior sister like him was too thoughtless, so he couldn't help but smile. What are you worried about? Teacher dares to trust me to do it by myself. Do you think I will be in danger? Seeing that he was confident and not worried at all, Anko immediately relaxed. Since it's Orochimaru sensei who is relieved, then there must be no problem. But on the surface, she curled her lips and said, who is worried about you? Hongdu's character is a bit bold and out of the box. After being quiet for a while, I couldn't bear it anymore. She walked to the front and turned around, facing Ishihara while walking backwards, and asked curiously. Lord Hokage said that your talent is very terrifying and that you can help people improve secret techniques. Is this true? Ishihara smiled and said, if you need it, I can help you for free. Enko's eyes rolled around. I don't need it for the time being, but my friends do, right, Hong? She ran up to Yuhi Kurenai and bumped her shoulder. Huh, Yuhi Hong looked at Anko and then looked at Ishihara with some confusion. Ishihara raised his eyebrows and said, that's okay. He knew that the third Hokage sent Anko out probably because he wanted to use their relationship to do something. Now it seems that he wants to verify his ability to develop secret techniques. He didn't care, but became interested. There are many ninjutsu, secret techniques, and forbidden techniques in Konoha. It seems that there will be a bumper harvest this time. Before Yuhi Hong said anything, Anko could not wait to say. Hurry up and show me some ninjutsu for Ishihara. Yuhi Kurenai hesitated for a moment, but still said a few ninjutsu. Illusion. This is not the other's art. Illusion. The art in the fox's heart. Illusion. Narakuju no jutsu. Illusion tree binding killing. Yuhi Hong mentioned several illusion techniques in succession, and Ishihara has mastered most of them. He asked in a relaxed tone, what kind of illusion do you want? Although his illusion space has all the abilities of illusion, it is naturally impossible for him to give it to Kurenai Yuhi. Yuhi Hong was stunned and asked in shock, can I decide? Seeing Ishihara nodding, she thought for a moment and then said, I hope it is an illusion that can interfere with the five senses, something that is not easy to detect. Hearing this, Ishihara glanced at her and said calmly, I understand, don't disturb me. After saying that, he walked forward on his own. Yuhi and Anko followed him, talking quietly. Anko asked in a low voice, how long do you think it will take? Kurenai Yuhi. Even if his talent is the same as what the third Hokage said, it will probably take a long time. Hongdu was a little surprised, but I don't think the conditions you mentioned are difficult. Yuhi Hong shook her head. My request seems simple, but in fact it is the most difficult. She looked at Ishihara's back with unconscious anticipation. The purpose of illusion itself is to interfere with the five senses. Either it cannot be detected, or it cannot be unlocked. These are the two extremes of illusion. However, once a general illusion is performed, it will be immediately noticed by the enemy. If the illusion can go unnoticed, it means that the enemy has been disturbed by the illusion, and the consequences will be disastrous. This is definitely the top illusion in the ninja world, and the difficulty can be imagined. After listening to Yuhi Kurenai's explanation, Enko suddenly laughed, a little gloating, leaving Yuhi Kurenai speechless. Their mission is to verify Ishihara's development capabilities. Aren't you afraid of failing the mission? Front, Ishihara was thinking in his mind as he walked. As almost the number one person in ninja illusions, he naturally understood the difficulty after Yuhi Kurenai opened her mouth. But it was precisely because of this that he became interested. The illusions given by Yuhi Hong are all visual, and I have also mastered a few auditory techniques, so I can optimize them. As Ishihara continued to think and improve, countless inspirations emerged and collided in his mind. You have tried to improve a lot of illusions, and the power of these illusions has been strengthened. You tried to simulate the ability of the death god Hiriko's Zanpakuto. Combined with many illusion techniques, you created the secret technique visual interference technique. Visual interference. Through illusion, it slightly interferes with the enemy's vision and is very difficult to detect. You tried to imitate death god Aizen's Zanpakuto ability Kyoka Suigetsu. Combined with many illusions and the foundation of illusion space, you had an epiphany, and you created the secret technique Kyoka Suigetsu. Jinghua Shui Yu. It can interfere with the enemy's five senses through vision, hearing, taste, etc. The illusion is extremely real and it is difficult to distinguish between true and false. Ishihara digested the information in his mind and smiled with satisfaction. Although the current Kyoka Suigetsu only slightly interferes with the enemy's five senses, it is incomparable to Aizen's complete hypnosis. However, given the level of his illusion skills, as long as he slightly interferes with the enemy's five senses during the performance, such as making the enemy's attack deflect by a few centimeters, it will be of great help to him. In short, this illusion works great for her and has huge potential. More importantly, Ishihara has a vague direction for his immortal body cultivation. Not bad, not bad. With today's harvest, it's worth coming to Konoha this time. Ishihara was very happy and took out a blank scroll with a smile on his face and wrote Visual Interference Technique on it. Then he stopped and handed it to Yuhi Kurenai behind him. Here you go, this is the ninjutsu you want, remember not to tell others without my permission. He didn't care about the mere visual interference technique, and there was no need to use a sealing technique. Just in time to test the two of them. Yuhi Hong and Anko looked at him in shock, their mouths wide open. Hongdu was a little skeptical. Are you lying to us? How could it be completed so quickly? You'll know if you take a look. Ishihara was not angry, and threw the scroll directly to Yuhi Hong, and continued to think along the same train of thought. The next step for the immortal body may be to go to Longdi Cave or meet the death god in the Ghoul Seal. Yuhi Hong took the scroll in panic, opened it eagerly, and then her eyes widened in shock. Hongdo next to her asked anxiously, how is it? Yuhi Hong took a deep breath and looked at Ishihara's back in shock, her heart trembling. This technique is very powerful, even more powerful than I imagined. It has perfectly achieved the effect I wanted. She felt that words could not express the shock in her heart at this moment. In such a short period of time, he was able to integrate so many illusions and develop a ninjutsu that was almost the secret of illusions. This talent is simply appalling. For a moment, Yuhi Hong's eyes looked at Ishihara's back with brilliance. Hongdu's eyes couldn't help but change when he heard this, feeling a little proud and a little disappointed. She was proud that this person was her junior brother, but she was disappointed because she was worried that Orochimaru would completely forget her if he had Ishihara. For a moment, the team fell silent. The Anbu following behind watched their movements and silently recorded them. There was no words all the way, and soon the group entered Konoha. Yuhi Hong and Anko took Ishihara to a small courtyard that was not remote, but clean and quiet. This is the residence that Mr. Hokage has arranged for you. Mr. Ishihara, you can tell me if you have anything. Yuhi Hong introduced the situation in the yard. Her beautiful eyes turned to Ishihara from time to time, and then reluctantly said goodbye to Anko. Ishihara stood in the yard and observed. The yard is not big, but there is an independent training ground with complete facilities. The location here is somewhat remote, with no neighbors and no other residents within a few hundred meters. Moreover, there is no Anbu surveillance, and Ishihara is quite satisfied with this. Just think of it as giving yourself a vacation. He sat leisurely in the yard, making tea, and wanted to see who would come to the door first. After Yuhi Hong and Anko left here, they went straight to the Hokage Tower. On the way, Hongdu looked at his best friend teasingly. Just now, someone's eyes were almost glued to Ishihara's body, and he asked, "Are you excited?" Yuhi Hong's face turned slightly red and she quickened her pace. "I didn't, don't talk nonsense." Anko reluctantly stepped forward to tickle her. "You said no, and your face turned red." "Oh, who made my junior brother handsome and talented? I don't blame you for falling in love with him." "Tisk tisk, my junior brother. Didn't you just say that you are not Orochimaru's disciple? I think you are tempted." Yuhi Hong retorted, not to be outdone. "Hee, it's so sour, someone is jealous." The two of them were fighting around and saw that the Hokage Tower had come into view. Hongdu suddenly spoke and reminded. "If Hokage-sama asks you to hand over Ishihara's secret technique later, you must not tell it." Yuhi Hong. "Why?" Hongdu shook his head and said seriously. "You don't understand the thoughts of this kind of person at all. Ishihara is very similar to Orochimaru. Don't look at it. When he gave you the ninjutsu, he just said that he couldn't give it to others without his permission, but if you really disobey him, he will definitely be very angry. You must not anger him." After seeing Ishihara's terrifying talent, she didn't want her best friend to offend Ishihara. Yuhi Hong thought for a moment after hearing this, then took out the scroll Ishihara gave her and burned it directly. "That's good." The two smiled at each other and walked into the Hokage Tower. The third Hokage, Danzo, Kaharu and Mito Manabu were already waiting for them. The two immediately explained the mission process in detail. Developing a secret-level illusion in just a few minutes is such a terrifying talent. The third Hokage sighed. He had already known from Itachi that Ishihara's illusions were extremely powerful, but this performance was still beyond his imagination. Then, he looked at Yuhi Hong and said, "Red, can you show us the secret technique Ishihara gave you?" This is a secret technique developed by Ishihara. There doesn't seem to be anything lower than S class. According to Yuhi Kurenai, this is still a profound illusion. Even if he doesn't need it, he can give it to his close subordinates or even take it back to his family. Not only the third Hokage, Danzo and others also looked at her with burning eyes. Yuhi Hong's heart skipped a beat, and she secretly felt glad that she had been prepared, looking embarrassed. "Hokage-sama, Ishihara said that this illusion cannot be shown to others without his permission. If I do this, will it anger him?" The third Hokage frowned slightly and opened his mouth but couldn't give a reason. I sighed internally and had no choice but to give up. "Diaresis, then show it to us. Let's see the power of this illusion." "Okay. However, the requirements for this illusion are very high. I have only just mastered it now, so the effect may not be very good. Please forgive me." Shihi Hong breathed a sigh of relief and said hurriedly. The illusion itself was tailor-made according to her situation, and coupled with her talent and background in illusion, it was easy for her to learn. She quickly formed a seal, and then a subtle wave spread out. The third Hokage, Danzo and others narrowed their eyes warily, and then looked at her with some confusion. Yuhi Hong took a slight breath, feeling a little shocked. The effect of this illusion may be stronger than I imagined. "Hokage-sama, my illusion has been completed." The third Hokage, Danzo and others looked at each other and frowned. "I feel it, but what's the effect?" Yuhi Hong stepped forward, picked up a pen on the desk, and flicked it out. It landed next to a document on the table in front of the third Hokage. The third Hokage's expression changed slightly. Years of accumulated combat experience allowed him to sense something was wrong, and he hurriedly dispelled the illusion. "Untie." Buzz. The third Hokage looked forward, and his pupils suddenly shrank. I saw that the pen did not fall next to the document, but penetrated the document. Yuhi Hong explained. The effect of this illusion only interferes with the illusion within a very small range, but it is difficult to be detected. The third Hokage took a slight breath. With rich combat experience, he immediately understood the horror of this illusion. If during a fierce battle, the attack or avoidance position deviates by a few centimeters, it will be a fatal mistake. The seemingly inconspicuous effect is actually extremely terrifying. As expected of Ishihara Wu. Not only him, Danzo and others naturally understand this truth. Several people couldn't help but feel hot in their hearts. If Ishihara can develop more secret techniques, Konoha will be prosperous. If I can control Ishihara, who can stop me from becoming Hokage? Danzo's eyes were extremely fiery. If he was still hesitant before, now he can't wait to use other gods on Ishihara. The breeze is gentle. A whirlpool suddenly appeared in a certain forest in Konoha village. Then a masked figure walked out of the whirlpool. It was Obito. When Kakashi went out on a mission before, he followed him secretly and peeked at his old friend from behind. But Z suddenly appeared and told him the information about Ishihara's appearance in Konoha, so he could only reluctantly return to Konoha. Have you figured out Ishihara's purpose? Obito paced back and forth a little anxiously. Ever since the Mist Ninja village was defeated by Ishihara, he had been thinking about how to deal with Ishihara. He already knows Ishihara's time and space ninjutsu, and he understands that it is difficult to catch Ishihara and even harder to kill him. But it's not that he hasn't found a way, it's just that it's very difficult to implement it. And before all this plan can begin, he must get back the kaleidoscope he left for Kakashi. This is also the reason why he has been following Kakashi recently. He is still hesitating. Chapter 71. But now that Ishihara has arrived in Konoha, Kakashi is about to return from his mission and will meet Ishihara soon. He didn't know if Ishihara, who had seen his true face, had investigated him. But he didn't dare to gamble. So he must get his kaleidoscope again 113 times before Kakashi and Ishihara meet. Based on the information collected so far, he should have come to Konoha for the secret techniques and Sharingan of Konoha. Ju's voice was a little heavy. He also understood how terrifying Ishihara's ability to develop secret techniques was. With Konoha's background, it's hard to imagine how far Ishihara's strength would have grown if he had obtained those secret techniques. It will definitely become the biggest obstacle to the Eye of the Moon plan. Obito couldn't help but fell silent after hearing this. After a long time, he said quietly, "Do you think Ishihara will hinder our Eye of the Moon plan?" He has now mastered the Thunder Chakra mode, as well as illusion techniques that are no weaker than the kaleidoscope and time and space ninjutsu. Plus the Sharingan and Byakugan. To be honest, I won't doubt that he will develop the Mangekyo Sharingan in the future, or even the Wood Release. Even the Reincarnation Eye. Obito was about to speak but stopped. But Black Zetsu knew what he meant. Can Ishihara develop the Samsara Eye in the future? He wanted to say it was impossible, but he couldn't. The Rinnegan Eye is indeed very complicated, but Ishihara developed the Sharingan without having any Uchiha bloodline, so it is not impossible to develop the Rinnegan Eye. Black Zetsu thought for a moment and asked, "Have you ever thought about letting Nagato take action?" Obito frowned and sighed. "Of course I've thought about it, but if it's just Pain's 6 paths, the chance of success is not high. Unless Nagato's body is allowed to recover, he will be able to fully exert his 6 paths abilities. But if he does this, it's hard to say whether Nagato will still be under his control. Most importantly, he was not sure whether the recovered Nagato could kill Ishihara. If not, and Nagato loses control again, then they will lose both their wife and their troops." Black Zetsu thought for a while and whispered, "How about we start capturing the tailed beasts now?" When Obito heard this, he was immediately moved. Black Zetsu saw this and said hurriedly, "Although there is still one tailed beast in the resurrection period, we can capture the other tailed beasts first." Although Ishihara is very strong now, his real combat power is still not as good as that of the first Hokage and Madara who were at their peak. As long as we complete the Eye of the Moon plan ahead of schedule, Ishihara will not pose a threat at all. Obito nodded upon hearing this. Now it seems that this may be the best way. But before that, I need to get my kaleidoscope back. Obito's eyes suddenly became complicated. The Sharingan was the gift he gave to Kakashi, and it was also the bond between the two of them. Now that he wanted to get it back, it made him feel somewhat depressed. somewhere within the Fire Nation. Kakashi and the Anbu team had just completed their mission when they received urgent information from the third Hokage. There is only one piece of information. Ishihara has arrived in Konoha. After seeing the information, Kakashi immediately hurried back to Konoha with his people, feeling quite uneasy. Why did Ishihara appear in Konoha? Thinking about CGBB, the last encounter with Ishihara, Kakashi felt extremely depressed. It's not just the difference in combat power, it's more about the feeling Ishihara gives him. Just like some kind of advanced creature is catching prey and studying it continuously, the entire ninja world is his experimental ground. So he had a strange feeling that Ishihara was not very dangerous. Kakashi sighed. I don't know if Ishihara's arrival this time is a good thing or a bad thing. The situation in Konoha has been too weird recently. In particular, the overt and covert fighting between Uchiha and Konoha's top brass made him upset. So I found an opportunity to go out on a mission, just to avoid these disputes. I didn't expect that I couldn't avoid it. Enemy attack. Suddenly, Yamato's voice sounded, causing Kakashi to wake up and his pupils suddenly shrank. The front is sweeping wildly, smoke and dust are raging, and the ground is shaking and rolling wildly. Wind escape and earth escape. And the offensive was extremely fierce and violent. The enemy's strength may be very strong. Kakashi felt a little heavy. He didn't expect to be attacked suddenly on the way back. He hurriedly roared. Disperse. Swish, brush, brush. The Anbu people immediately dispersed. Kakashi also immediately hid behind a big tree, his back pressed against the trunk, and he was about to peek out quietly. Suddenly, a chill ran down his spine, and his hair stood on end. He turned around in horror, and his pupils suddenly shrank. A figure suddenly appeared in front of him, and a hand almost covered his eyes. Kakashi was horrified. There was no difference at all, which was simply terrifying. He immediately escaped without thinking. But, whoosh! Two vines that had appeared on the tree behind him instantly wrapped around his body. Kakashi was horrified and a little unbelievable. Wood release. The enemy actually mastered the wood release. Did Yamato betray Konoha or did the enemy master the wood release? But Obito didn't give him any time to think. Poof! Obito dug out Kakashi's eyes neatly, and the three Magatama Sharingan behind the mask stared at Kakashi. Sharingan, who are you? Kakashi was shocked by a series of accidents and his mind was in a mess. He didn't even care about the pain of having his eyes dug out, and asked harshly. Sharingan and wood release. The enemy actually mastered these two abilities at the same time. Who is he? Obito stared at Kakashi, his eyes full of nostalgia, hatred, murderous intent, and reluctance. He said in a low voice, "This is your punishment." After speaking, Obito looked at Kakashi, and his figure sank into the ground and disappeared. Boom! Looking at that look, a name that should never appear suddenly appeared in Kakashi's mind, making his mind blank, and he murmured. Impossible, Obito is dead, it can't be him. But thinking of the mysterious man's eyes just now, Kakashi couldn't help but think of Obito. Obito appeared in a forest, looking gloomy and dazed. Zetsu came out of the ground and asked in confusion, "Why don't you kill Kakashi? If you continue like this, your identity will be exposed." Obito said in a muffled voice, "Ishihara appeared in Konoha. I'm afraid my identity can't be hidden for long, and my identity is not important." He looked at the Mangekyo Sharingan in his hand, his eyes full of coldness. "Kakashi, you just struggle in pain and regret." The enemy's attack came and went quickly. Yamato and others heard Kakashi's voice and rushed over. They were shocked to see that his Sharingan was dug out. But no matter how they asked, Kakashi didn't say a word. He couldn't be sure whether the enemy was Obito, and his heart was in a mess. After a simple bandage, the group took Kakashi back to Konoha quickly. Kakashi went to the ninja hospital for treatment, while Yamato and others went to the Hokage building to report to the third Hokage. In the Hokage building, Yamato and others came to report. The third Hokage was shocked. Kakashi's Sharingan was dug out. He couldn't help but be shocked. Ishihara had just appeared in Konoha, and Kakashi's Sharingan was dug out. It was hard not to be suspicious. In addition, the current struggle between Konoha's high-level and Uchiha, the Uchiha clan is also suspected. The third Hokage felt that the already complicated situation became more complicated. But he couldn't get more information from Yamato, so he immediately set off for the ninja hospital. At this time in Konoha, all forces strengthened their intelligence collection because of Ishihara's existence, and watched the actions of other families. So the news that Kakashi lost his Sharingan could not be covered up at all, and soon the news was known to all major families. In the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Fugaku was explaining the situation to the clan members who wanted to find Ishihara to open the Mangekyo. He needs to perform illusion hypnosis on everyone and plant seeds in their hearts, so that at the moment of opening the Mangekyo, the open pupil technique can help them get rid of Ishihara's control. This kind of thing has never been done even in the history of the Uchiha clan. Fugaku is just trying, so he needs to perform illusion hypnosis for a long time, the longer the better. However, after hearing this news, Fugaku couldn't help but interrupt the plan and went to the ninja hospital angrily. Ninja hospital. Kakashi is still undergoing surgery. Eye transplantation is a surgery that can be done with hands in the ninja world. Nohara Rin, a Chunin, can complete it, not to mention the ninja hospital. And Konoha, as a violent organization, has found ordinary eyes suitable for Kakashi in a very short time. So Kakashi was given an eye transplant as soon as possible. At the door of the operating room, the third-generation Hokage walked back and forth with a heavy face. At this time, Fugaku, with an angry face, came. "Where is Kakashi? Where is he? Let him come out to see me." The third Hokage immediately became alert. After all, the Uchiha clan is highly suspected of being the murderer of Kakashi, and Uchiha Fugaku is the one who opened the Mangekyo eye. "Kakashi is still in surgery, please be quiet, Chief Fugaku," the third Hokage said in a deep voice. Fugaku glanced at the operating room where the lights were still on, and waited by the side with a cold face without saying a word. The two were silent, and the people behind them were also looking at each other warily. The surrounding patients or people in the ninja hospital also carefully avoided them. Time passed slowly. Ding! The lights in the operating room went out, the door opened, and Kakashi, with a bandage on his left eye, walked out. Seeing the third Hokage and Fugaku waiting outside, he smiled bitterly. "Please follow me, both of you." Then Kakashi brought the two to the rooftop of the ninja hospital. The periphery and the vicinity were surrounded by people from the Anbu and the police force. Fugaku finally lost his temper and asked angrily, "Kakashi, you'd better explain to me why the Sharingan disappeared. Otherwise, Uchiha will never forgive you." When Kakashi changed his eyes, it was almost certain that Minato Namikaze would become the fourth Hokage. So for the sake of the future fourth Hokage, he took on the huge pressure from the clan and let Kakashi continue to hold the Sharingan. This situation of an outsider possessing the Sharingan is the first time in the history of Uchiha. You can imagine his pressure. But now Kakashi has had his Sharingan taken away by someone, and I don't know who has it. This is something that the Uchiha clan can never accept. The third Hokage had a gloomy face and didn't say anything. He also knew the interests involved. If this matter is not handled well, it may directly trigger a conflict between the Uchiha and Konoha high-level officials. But Kakashi is his man, he must stand up to protect him, and asked coldly, "Fugaku, are you sure this was not done by someone from your Uchiha clan?" "Ha ha." Fugaku laughed in anger. "Hokage, is there anyone who knows better than you whether the Uchiha elites are in Konoha? Do you think that besides me, who else in the Uchiha clan can take away Kakashi's Sharingan?" The surveillance of the Uchiha by the Anbu is something that both of them know in their hearts. Speaking out at this moment was like pointing out the dispute between Uchiha and Konoha, which immediately made the atmosphere more solemn. The third Hokage frowned, which was why he only suspected Uchiha but not sure that the Uchiha clan was the murderer. Kakashi had a headache when he saw this. He didn't want to get involved in the war between the Uchiha and Konoha high-level officials, but now it has become the most important fuse. He knew that he couldn't hide it anymore, otherwise it might really lead to an escalation of the conflict. After pondering for a moment, Kakashi sighed and said gloomily, "Hokage, Fugaku clan leader, I have already guessed who took my Sharingan." The two of them were immediately refreshed when they heard this, and asked in unison, "Who is it? Is it Ishihara?" Kakashi was stunned, then shook his head. The two of them breathed a sigh of relief. If it was really Ishihara who took action, then this matter would be much more complicated to handle. Who is that? Kakashi took a deep breath and gently uttered 2 words. Obito. Uchiha Obito. The third Hokage and Fugaku asked with grim expressions. This is a dead man, is Kakashi kidding? Kakashi looked a little depressed. I know this is a little unbelievable, but don't forget, Obito's body was not found at the time, he was just suspected of death. And the look in his eyes when he took away my Sharingan. I can't think of anyone else except Obito. He is very strong, and I saw his 3 Magatama Sharingan. I suspect that he has activated the Mangekyo Sharingan. The reason why I took away my Sharingan is probably for the Mangekyo. Although I really don't want to associate my former friend with that cold and mysterious guy. But Kakashi couldn't think of anyone other than Obito. With that look in his eyes, he was probably resenting me for not protecting Lin. Kakashi sighed, the painful memory came back again, making him look a little defeated. The expressions of the third Hokage and Fugaku changed greatly. Although it's not certain yet, Kakashi's explanation makes perfect sense. The third Hokage frowned. The dispute with Uchiha was still going on, and there was another Uchiha Obito whose position was unknown and who was suspected of having turned on the kaleidoscope. It made him feel extremely heavy. Especially the other party's attitude is definitely not on Konoha's side, and may even be antagonistic. After all, Obito died in Konoha's war with foreign countries. The third Hokage cursed inwardly. Fugaku's heart was equally heavy. Although the Sharingan most likely did not fall into the hands of outsiders. But Obito's stance may not be a good thing. Fugaku's thoughts swirled in his mind, and he looked at Kakashi and said, I will investigate this matter. It's okay to say that the murderer is Obito, but if it wasn't him. He raised his hand and nodded at Kakashi, snorted, and turned to leave. Kakashi sighed after hearing this, smiled bitterly and said nothing. The third Hokage frowned slightly when he saw this. Fugaku's strength gave him a bad feeling that the battle with Uchiha was about to begin. This not only gave him a sense of urgency. Looking at the depressed Kakashi, the third Hokage sighed. Kakashi is the top combat power among the Jonins in Konoha. It is not a good thing to lack a Kakashi at this time. He had to cheer up. The third Hokage patted his shoulder. Kakashi, don't be depressed, it's still unclear whether the enemy is Obito or not. That's not the way to go if you want to find out the truth. Even if that person is really Obito, don't you want to know what happened to him? What made him become like this and not return to Konoha? Kakashi was shocked when he heard this and woke up. Lord Hokage is right, now is not the time to be decadent. Please rest assured that I will regain my strength as soon as possible. The third Hokage breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this and comforted. Although the Sharingan has helped you a lot, it has also been inhibiting your growth. Kakashi, you are the genius of our Konoha, but your strength has hardly changed in the past 10 years. Losing the Sharingan this time may be a good thing for you. Kakashi touched the transplanted ordinary eye and nodded. The Sharingan was extremely taxing on his body. He kept his Sharingan open at all times on weekdays, and the Sharingan was consuming his chakra all the time. And because he doesn't have Uchiha blood, the Sharingan is also a heavy burden for him. Now that he didn't have the Sharingan, he felt extremely relaxed, as if he was back to the state of his youth. Thinking of Obito, Lin, and the fourth Hokage, Kakashi thought to himself. It's time for me to come out. Lin, Obito, teacher, I will become stronger this time. No matter what happens to Obito, I will bring him back. Kakashi cheered up and felt a little anxious. After hastily bidding farewell to the third Hokage, he immediately returned home and took out the long-lost swordsmanship inheritance of his father Konoha White Tooth, as well as his Reikiri ninjutsu scroll. Ishihara happens to be in Konoha, so maybe this time is really my chance. The families in Konoha are still waiting and watching. Even though Nara Shikaku had made a decision, he still did not act in a hurry. Instead, he immediately went to Yuhi to verify the situation. At this time, Kakashi embarked on the road to find Ishihara. Kakashi, I heard that your Sharingan was taken away, how are you? On the way, Metkai hurried over, observing him anxiously. Kakashi shook his head, his expression calm. After treatment, I am fine for the time being. It seems that the news of my accident has spread. He also felt the current atmosphere in Konoha, which was a little too quiet. Metkai looked at him carefully and saw that he was really fine. He patted his chest and breathed a sigh of relief, and asked doubtfully. It's okay. Where are you going now? Kakashi glanced at him and said, 3, and after thinking for a moment, he said, I'm going to see Ishihara, and you should come with me. Metkai frowned. Why do you want to find him? As an elite Junin of Konoha, the third Hokage naturally told him the information about Ishihara. Although he is very curious about Ishihara, he has no plans to contact him for the time being. Stop asking and come with me quickly. Kakashi didn't explain, and directly dragged Metkai to Ishihara's yard. I didn't expect that the first person to come would be you. Ishihara looked at Kakashi with some surprise and asked in surprise, did Obito just get his Mangekyo back? He thought that Obito would take back his Mangekyo immediately after being defeated by him, so he didn't go to Kakashi. Now it seems that he underestimated Kakashi's position in Obito's heart and missed the opportunity to study Kamui. Kakashi looked a little excited. Have you seen Obito? Just a defeated general. Ishihara curled his lips and didn't care much. Looking at Kakashi's anxious look, Ishihara waved his hand. I'm not interested in talking to you about Obito. Kakashi's expression froze when he heard this, and he swallowed the words he was about to say. But confirming that Obito was still alive was enough for him. Obito, what happened to you? Kakashi's mind was a little confused, and his face was changing as he stood by. Tell me, what do you want to see me about? Ishihara's eyes fell on Might Guy. Compared with Kakashi, he was more interested in Might Guy. The 8 gates of the ninjutsu was the forbidden technique he had always wanted to study. Kakashi came back to his senses, shook his head and tried to make himself clearer, and asked directly. I want to know what I can get if I give you the secret technique. Ishihara touched his chin when he heard it. He had already thought about this matter a long time ago, and said with a smile. I will help you improve the secret technique for free, but the improved secret technique is limited to your own use and cannot be passed on to others. I will impose a sealing technique to restrict it. Well, I will only give you a weakened version. Ishihara silently praised himself in his heart, feeling that it was fair that he did not snatch it. Sealing technique. Kakashi frowned slightly. Sealing can be said to be the most mysterious ninjutsu in the ninja world, which can do many incredible things. But sealing is also the most dangerous ninjutsu. Just like the caged bird of the Hyuga family, it can even directly control life and death. Let Ishihara use sealing on himself, the hidden dangers can be imagined. Don't worry, I have no interest in controlling your life and death, I just want to make the transaction fairer. Ishihara said disdainfully. Kakashi nodded. He believed that with Ishihara's pride, he would definitely do it since he said it. But just in case, I hope your technique can be checked by Konoha, and there will be people from Konoha's sealing class present when the seal is applied. Kakashi was extremely cautious when it came to his own life. Ishihara sneered when he heard this. His sealing technique was not something that everyone could understand. Whatever you want. Kakashi breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this, and then handed over the 2 ninjutsu scrolls in his hand. This is the ninjutsu I want to exchange with you. Ishihara opened it and took a look, then spread his hands. Reikiri is no longer worth studying for me, and your father's swordsmanship is not of much significance to me, and there is not much room for improvement. What he wanted to study were secret techniques and forbidden techniques, with the goal of studying the essence of ninjutsu. Swordsmanship is just a form of chakra application, and it doesn't play a big role in his research. And he just saw that the White Fang swordsmanship is very complete, and the key is to practice the lightning chakra. As long as you practice according to the method, there is not much room for improvement. Kakashi's face sank and his brows furrowed when he heard this. He didn't expect this result. After hesitating for a moment, he took out another scroll and handed it over. Okay. These are some of my thoughts on Reikiri and lightning chakra that I have written down over the years. I would like to trouble you to take a look at them for me. Ishihara shook his head, but still took it and opened it to take a look, then looked at him with some surprise. Your idea is good, and the direction is fine, but it's too loose and unsystematic. Forget it, since you are the first one to come to me, and I have studied your Reikiri before and the White Fang sword technique I just saw, I will help you this time. The scroll records Kakashi's research on lightning chakra. Among them is the ninjutsu of Thunder Beast, which shows that Kakashi's attainments in lightning chakra are not low now. More importantly, Ishihara saw the shadow of the purple lightning developed by Kakashi in the future from these records. It actually triggered his inspiration. Kakashi was relieved when he heard it. Ishihara carefully read the contents of Kakashi's scroll, compared it with his own lightning and Mangekyo Eye technique Thunder God, and suddenly thought about it. Although the Thunder God's Eye technique has the effect of paralyzing the enemy, adding these ideas of Kakashi seems to make Thunder God's Eye technique a step further. Could it be that purple lightning is the upper bloodline limit of Thunder God's Eye technique? While thinking, a lot of inspiration flashed in my mind and collided. You read Kakashi's Thunder God's Eye technique research records, you integrated the Thunder God's Eye technique in the Thunder body, and you suddenly realized. You developed the secret technique Purple Lightning. Purple Lightning. After practicing, you can master the Purple Thunder God's Eye technique chakra, and no seal is required when performing it, and Thunder God's Eye technique has a paralyzing effect. You created the secret technique Thunder God's Eye technique Swift simplified version. Thunder God's Eye technique Swift simplified version use Thunder God's Eye technique chakra to increase the speed, number and penetration of kunai, forming a sword formation like a net to attack the enemy. You created the secret technique of Purple Lightning simplified version. Simplified version of Purple Lightning. After practicing, you can master the Purple Lightning chakra, and you don't need to make hand seals to perform lightning ninjutsu, and it is more powerful. The information in his mind made Ishihara smile. Lightning chakra can be further improved. Kakashi hurriedly asked, "How is it?" Ishihara smiled and said, "It's finished." He picked up a blank scroll and began to write. Of course, he wrote the simplified version of Purple Lightning. Kakashi and Might Guy looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Even though Might Guy had heard a lot of information about Ishihara, it was far less shocking than seeing it with his own eyes. And Kakashi sighed in frustration. Compared with Ishihara, he felt that his title of genius was like a mockery of himself. Soon, Ishihara finished writing and handed the scroll to Kakashi. Kakashi took a look and was shocked. He didn't expect that not only his ideas were perfected, but also there was a complete practice method. It is the most suitable ninjutsu for him now. He looked at Ishihara and said sincerely, "Thank you." Ishihara shook his head. "Even if there is no, I am afraid that with your ability, it will not take long to develop this secret technique. Don't thank me. Now Kakashi has no Sharingan, so he will definitely pick up the lightning release again." So what he said is true. Kakashi shook his head and said nothing. After all, what he lacks most now is time. After putting the scroll away, he looked at Might Guy and said, "The one next to me is Might Guy, who is good at physical skills. I wonder if you can help him." He knew that his friend was studying the 8th gate of the 8 gates of the ninjutsu, the Death Gate. But this is a forbidden technique that will lead to certain death. He didn't want his friend to die in the hands of his forbidden technique in the future, so he brought Might Guy with him. No, I don't need it." Might Guy was a little caught off guard and waved his hand to refuse. Unlike Kakashi, although his 8 gates of the ninjutsu is a family tradition, it is also a forbidden technique included in the Book of Seals. To spread this kind of forbidden technique, the third Hokage must agree, or at least notify the other party in advance. After all, ninjas who have mastered forbidden techniques are all key personnel in Konoha. And apart from the 8 gates of the ninjutsu, he has no other secret techniques or forbidden techniques. Might Guy, right, I'm very interested in your 8 gates of the ninjutsu and taijutsu. Do you want to make a deal? Ishihara looked at him with interest. Although he has developed many secret techniques, there is no taijutsu. The reason is that the principle of taijutsu is very simple, and it takes a lot of practice and experience to become stronger. In this regard, Might Guy's value is very precious. Just as Might Guy was about to speak, Kakashi hurriedly touched him and whispered anxiously, "Even if you don't trade, I'm afraid the Hokage will trade." He has already seen the current situation in Konoha. Although many people are still hesitant, since Ishihara has already appeared in Konoha, it has already explained the attitude of the third Hokage and others. With Ishihara's talent, he will definitely be able to develop many secret techniques. At that time, the third Hokage will definitely not be able to resist the temptation and will definitely take out the forbidden technique of the 8 gates. Rather than letting others get a bargain, it is better to let Might Guy complete the transaction, which can also make Ishihara feel a little good. What's more, Ishihara's attitude is very clear. Only those who trade can learn the improved forbidden technique, and only the first person to trade is valuable. If this opportunity is given to the third Hokage, then Might Guy will not be able to learn it. Hearing this, Might Guy hesitated. He was not stupid, so he naturally understood the interests involved. After hesitating for a moment, he agreed. Okay. Then he looked at Ishihara with some doubts. I understand that you want the 8 gates, but is my physical skills worth the interest of someone like you? In his opinion, Ishihara was very powerful, and his talent was beyond his reach. He should not be interested in physical skills, which are only for idiots. Of course, your physical skills are worth studying. If there is anyone else in the ninja world whose physical skills can interest him, it is only Might Guy and Tsunade. The soft fist of the Hyuga family does not count. After all, it is more about the use of chakra. Afterwards, Ishihara and Might Guy started a physical skills exchange in the yard, and Kakashi gradually joined in. It must be said that Might Guy is indeed an expert in physical skills. In the past, Ishihara's understanding of physical skills was limited to theory, and his physical skills were not strong. But Might Guy is not only proficient in theory, but also demonstrates from time to time, which makes Ishihara have a deeper and deeper understanding of physical skills. You observed Might Guy's physical skills, and you learned Konoha's Goriki Cyclone. You observed Might Guy's physical skills, and you learned Konoha's Bad Rock Rising. You observed. You recalled the principles of the Marine 6 Styles physical skills, and you had an epiphany, and you created the secret physical skills of the 6 Styles of Taijutsu Shave. 6 Styles of Taijutsu Shave. Use chakra to assist or rely solely on the body, and use the reaction force of continuous stomping on the ground in a short period of time to move at high speed. You recalled the principles of the Marine 6 Styles physical skills, and you had an epiphany, and you created the secret physical skills of the 6 Styles of Taijutsu Moon Step. 6 Styles of Taijutsu Moon Step. Use chakra to assist or rely solely on the body's explosive power to step on the air, creating a hovering effect. A large amount of information poured into his mind, and Ishihara looked thoughtful. Originally, he wanted to take this opportunity to thoroughly develop the Marine 6 Styles. But in fact, many of the Marine 6 Styles moves are difficult to develop in the ninja world. After all, the Navy 6 Styles requires more unreasonable control over the body, which is difficult to achieve in Naruto. At least Ishihara can't control the body cells at the moment. So he can only use chakra to assist in achieving similar effects. Seeing the smile on his face, Might Guy and Kakashi also calmed down and looked at him expectantly. Let's stop here for the exchange of physical skills for now. This is for you, but don't have too high expectations. Ishihara wrote down the 2 physical skills and handed them to Might Guy. Might Guy couldn't help but be stunned after reading them, so physical skills can be performed like this. He couldn't help but try to perform a shave. Although he was not very skilled, the effect shocked him. The speed has increased a lot. Thank you, this physical skill is very useful to me. Might Guy sincerely thanked him. For a pure physical ninja like him, speed and strength can improve combat power. But now he can reach at least the speed of the 3rd gate without opening the 8 gates to hurt his body. It's so surprising that it can't be more surprising. Ishihara also showed an expectant smile. Next, let's talk about the 8 gates. Here comes the point. 8 gates. Might Guy is a decisive person. Since he has made up his mind, he will not hesitate. He blocked it and began to narrate it. The 8 gates is a move that releases a large amount of chakra at the same time by removing the body's restrictions on chakra. The 8 gates are actually not something mysterious. Anyone who has practiced for a long time will understand it, and can even touch this field themselves. But for most ninjas, the 8 gates are a field that is out of reach. They can only watch and cannot be controlled at all. Ishihara is naturally very familiar with this, and can even clearly observe the existence of the 8 gates through the Byakugan. But if you want to open the 8 gates and use the 8 gates, there is a prerequisite. That is extraordinary, overloaded, beyond the limit, and long-term training. Only such training can make all parts and organs of the body adapt to the overload state after opening the 8 gates, and can minimize the damage to the body caused by the large amount of chakra after opening the 8 gates. And this has nothing to do with the strength of the body. Even if your physique is strong, but the amount of chakra is also large. The energy burst after opening the 8 gates is still overloaded. In front of the 8 gates, all physiques are equal. Every day, run 50 laps around Konoha upside down, and practice 10,000 weighted kicks. Ishihara couldn't help but be a little surprised when he heard Might Guy's exaggerated physical training experience. What's more terrifying is that he has been practicing such high intensity for 20 years. It's simply not human. At the same time, Ishihara also opened the Byakugan and the perspective world to observe Might Guy's body and the 8 gates in his body. Might Guy's muscle fibers are denser than ordinary people, and his ligaments, bones, etc. are much stronger than ordinary ninjas. Even the activity intensity of organs such as the lungs and heart is the same. But there are also many traces of recovery after tearing and breaking on his muscles and bones. It looks like it was caused by using the 8 gates. What made Ishihara particularly concerned was that Metkai's chakra meridian system and the surrounding tissues were far stronger than other ninjas. Especially where the 8 doors are located, there are obvious signs of being opened frequently. Soon, Metkai finished speaking, but Ishihara felt that it was not enough. I need to see you open the 8 gates Dunjia with my own eyes, and it is best to feel it. Feelings. Metkai was a little confused. I have a secret technique called life chain. This technique allows me to use my chakra to connect with you and feel what's going on in your body. As long as I connect to your chakra, I can observe it in more detail when you use the 8-door Dunjia. It's more helpful in developing new secret techniques. Don't worry, you can clear my chakra yourself after the demonstration. As for whether you want it or not, you make your own decision. Ishihara didn't force it. After all, everyone knew how risky it was to let other people's chakra enter one's body. But without any hesitation, Metkai said, I agree. Now that the 8-gate Dunjia has been handed over, no matter the cost. Kakashi next to him said hurriedly, wait a minute, I'll find someone else to help. Then he looked at Ishihara and said apologetically, it concerns Kai's safety. Please forgive me, Mr. Ishihara. It doesn't matter, you go find someone. Ishihara waved his hand nonchalantly. This also saves them from wrangling afterwards and makes them less troublesome. Soon, Kakashi found someone, Hinata Hinashi. Mr. Ishihara. Hinata Hazu was very polite and walked aside with a greeting. He already knew what he needed to do, so he opened his white eyes and waited intently. Kakashi. It's time to start. Ishihara nodded and immediately cast the life chain. In an instant, the blue chakra visible to the naked eye was linked from his body to Metkai's body. Let's start. Use the 8-door Dunjia with all your strength and let me see. Good. Might Guy crossed his arms in front of him, his body tensed. The first gate of the 8 gates, open, open. Buzz. A special wave emanated from his body. Ishihara clearly saw that at that moment, the door at the position of Might Guy's brain opened easily as if it had received an order. It was as easy as using an arm to move a finger. And at the moment the door opened, his chakra felt the changes in Might Guy's body. His nervous system changed, no longer suppressing muscles and other body tissues to protect the body, allowing them to exert 100% of their strength. The function of the first gate is to remove the restrictions of the brain area and maximize the body's capabilities. The second gate, the rest gate, open. Suddenly, the cells in Might Guy's body seemed to be stimulated by something, becoming more active than before, and the life energy became much richer. The second gate, remove the restrictions on physical fatigue and quickly restore physical strength. The third gate, the gate of life, open. Ishihara could clearly see that the amount of chakra flowing in the chakra meridian system had reached its limit, causing the meridians to swell and compress the nearby capillaries. The blood flow rate in the body began to speed up, causing Might Guy's body to turn red. Veins on the surface of the skin bulged. Chakra began to overflow. And a green energy body emerged from the whole body. Is this the uncontrolled overflow of life energy after being squeezed? Ishihara concentrated on analyzing this green energy and was a little surprised. The third gate, the last safe zone of the 8 gates of Dunjia, exerts the greatest combat power without directly damaging the body. The fourth gate, the gate of injury, open. The fifth gate, the gate of endurance, open. The sixth gate, the gate of scenery, open. The opening of the 3 gates in succession did not cause any special changes. It was just that the chakra flow and flow rate in the meridian system continued to rise. rising, completely off the charts. It also made Might Guy's motor function explode completely. That kind of violent chakra was not controlled at all. Not to mention fine manipulation, even simple control is extremely difficult. And this violent chakra is constantly damaging Might Guy's body. Muscles are torn apart, bones are also damaged. This is a body like Might Guy that has been tempered. If it were an ordinary person, I'm afraid all the bones would be broken. It may even explode and die. Ishihara frowned. This way of using chakra is too simple and crude. Physical injury means the death and replacement of cells, but the number of cell divisions in the human body is limited. Opening the 8 gates of ninjutsu undoubtedly shortens the cell division and renewal time. That means shortening life. And the chakra meridian system is also damaged, which is the most dangerous. What makes Ishihara even more frightened is that the chakra he connected to Might Guy with the life chain is actually being reduced by the impact of this violent energy. The 7th gate, the gate of shock, open. Boom. With a roar from Might Guy, a terrifying chakra burst out from his body, blue steam surrounded his body, and the violent impact continued to rage around like a hurricane. Everything in the yard was blown away, and Kakashi and Hyuga Hiyashi's bodies were constantly retreating. The two looked at Might Guy in shock. This is the 8 gates of the ninjutsu, it is indeed a terrible forbidden technique. Hyuga Hiyashi saw it more clearly and was even more horrified. This amount of chakra is simply inhuman. He is definitely not an opponent. For a moment, his eyes looking at Might Guy changed. The terrifying momentum continued to vent out. What happened? Countless people in Konoha were immediately alarmed, and they focused their eyes in the direction of Might Guy in shock. That's where Ishihara is. Did something happen? Many people's faces changed drastically and hurried over. At this time in the yard, Ishihara stared at Might Guy, concentrating on analyzing his current state. His chakra was being dispersed quickly, and he didn't have much time left. Hiss. His chakra meridians and blood vessels have reached their limits, and they will even burst if they are maintained for a longer time. But his body functions have also reached the peak, too strong. And his body is squeezing cells, extracting an extraordinary amount of chakra, and the cells are overloaded. Ishihara was awed, but he didn't worry at all. Since he dared to come to Konoha, he was naturally prepared and was not afraid of Might Guy attacking him. Might Guy was amazing, looking at Ishihara and said in a deep voice, "I can only open the state of the 7th gate now, and the 8th gate cannot be opened for the time being." Ishihara nodded, squinted his eyes and said, "There is no need to open the 8th gate, you just need to try it." Kakashi's face changed drastically, but Might Guy nodded. The 8th gate, the death gate, open. Boom. As Might Guy moved, Ishihara could clearly see the 8th gate in his body shaking, and it felt like it would be opened at any time. But Ishihara felt something different. When the death gate loosened, he could clearly feel that the cells in Might Guy's body were undergoing subtle changes. This state is a bit like the Mangekyo Sharingan eye-opening technique I developed for the Uchiha clan. So that's how it is. It's actually to squeeze out the vitality of all cells in the body at once. Ishihara couldn't help but be shocked. There are so many cells in the human body. Even in the setting of the Naruto world, there are 13 trillion cells. The bioenergy generated by these cells from the peak of life to death in an instant, how terrifying would the extracted life energy be? Enough to carbonize the body. The horror of this energy is completely uncontrollable. So after the death gate is opened, it cannot be reversed at all. All you can do is keep squeezing all the cells until all the cells die. This means that the person who casts the 8 gates of ninjutsu will also die. And this is the source of the powerful power of the 8 gates of ninjutsu, and it is also the price. Diaresis, it's enough. Seeing that Might Guy has reached his limit, Ishihara hurriedly spoke. Might Guy hurriedly stopped the 8 gates of ninjutsu, and the pain all over his body instantly hit him, almost making him fall down. Fortunately, Kakashi hurriedly supported him. "How is it? Do we need to go to the ninja hospital right away?" Might Guy shook his head and looked at Ishihara, who was staring at him, his eyes full of desire. He wanted to master the 8 gates of the ninjutsu and solve the shortcomings of the 8 gates of the ninjutsu. But he knew he couldn't do it, so he could only rely on Ishihara. Kakashi stopped talking when he saw this, and the two of them, including Hyuga Hiyashi, looked at Ishihara nervously, waiting silently. Ishihara is carefully observing every detail of Metkai closing the 8 gates. Countless auras exploded in his mind. The 8-door Dunjia wastes too much chakra. It would be great if these chakras could be restrained. No, this chakra is too violent. It overflows precisely because the body cannot bear it. Once it is restrained in the body, it becomes a problem. So what we need to control is not the overflowing chakra, but reducing the amount of chakra. Control the opening degree of the 8 doors. Ishihara frowned. The 8 gates are like a dam. When they are opened, they release floods, and when they are closed, they are dams. There is no such thing as a floodgate. It is too difficult to control this violent chakra. Create what you don't have. Each of the 8 gates is a gate formed by 4 valves existing in the chakra meridians. Just control the 4 valves. No, it's too difficult to control the valve, even I can't do it. Then close the valve. Just keep part of the valve well done closed while opening the 8-door Dunjia. This solves the problem of the door of death. You can only open one valve when opening the door of death. But it's still not enough. If you want to forcibly close the 8 gates, you may not be able to do it with the help of the spellcaster. It is best to add the help of spells or seals. The problem of death's door is solved. This feeling of overwhelming inspiration made Ishihara extremely excited and extremely enjoyable. In addition to the death gate, we also need to solve the side effects of the 8-door Dunjia. I don't need to solve the problem of lifespan, but I can try to solve the damage to the body. Use the life energy that escapes after opening the 3rd gate, and then gather it to quickly heal your own injuries, thus achieving the effect of medical ninjutsu. You and Metkai exchange the knowledge and experience of the 8 gates of Dunjia, you analyze the techniques of the 8 gates of Dunjia, and you had an epiphany. You created the secret technique 8-gate Dunjia cultivation method. You created the secret technique 8 sealing techniques. You created the secret technique life energy sealing technique. 8-gate Dunjia cultivation method. By practicing this secret technique, you can gradually control the switches of the 8 gates and open the 8-gate Dunjia Wu. 8-gate seal technique. Control the 8-gate valves in the body through seals, thereby achieving the effect of controlling the power of the 8-gate Dunjia. Life energy sealing technique. The life energy dissipated in the body is accumulated through sealing, and can be released at critical moments to treat physical injuries. After digesting the information in his mind, Ishihara had a smile on his face. Needless to say, the 8 gates Dunjia practice method is more targeted and more professional than the original 8 gates Dunjia. The 8-door sealing technique can even lock the chakra in the body, forcefully close the door of death, and completely break the taboo that opening the 8th door will lead to death. And the last one made Ishihara even more excited. Isn't this Tsunade's yin seal? Tsunade's yin seal actively accumulates chakra and releases it when needed to achieve instant healing, strengthen attacks and increase speed. His life energy sealing technique was based on Ishihara's own research on chakra and the life energy dissipated during the opening of the 8-gate Dunjia. Release it when needed to achieve rapid treatment effects. In terms of effect, it is naturally not as good as Tsunade's yin seal. But in terms of function, it is more suitable for people who have opened the 8-gate Dunjia. How's it going? Seeing Ishihara's smile, Metkai, Kakashi, Hinata and Hinata hurriedly stepped forward and asked eagerly. Success. Hearing this, Metkai suddenly became excited. Kakashi and Hinata looked shocked. This is the 8-gate Dunjia, the forbidden technique among the forbidden techniques, and it has been improved so quickly. It's absolutely terrifying. No, we must convince people in the family to cooperate with Ishihara. Hinata felt a sense of urgency. Metkai's strength is already very strong, which makes him feel tremendous pressure. But now you can still get improved secret techniques, and your strength will become stronger. What about other families? If the Hyuga clan continues to stagnate, can they still remain a wealthy family? Looking at Metkai, Hyuga Hazu himself rejected this idea. Ishihara pondered. There is no doubt that these 3 secret techniques are very powerful. In terms of pure value, each one is not much worse than the 8-gate Dunjia, or even surpasses the 8-gate Dunjia. Moreover, Metkai, who has activated the 8-gate armor formation, can threaten him now. Naturally, it was impossible for him to give him all 3 secret techniques. The 8-gate escape armor cultivation method is just a systematic arrangement of Metkai's practice experience. It doesn't hurt to leave it to him. But the 8 sealing techniques and the life energy sealing technique need to be weakened. With previous experience, Ishihara quickly obtained the 2 weakened secret techniques. Death Door Seal Technique, weakened version of the 8 Door Seal Technique. It can only control the valve of the death door, but can forcefully close the death door. Life Energy Sealing Technique, weakened version, contains the dissipated life energy when opening the 8-door Dunjia, and releases it immediately after closing the 8 doors Dunjia. It can only temporarily store life energy. For these 2 secret techniques, Ishihara smiled with satisfaction, then looked at the anxious Might Guy and said, "The secret technique has been developed, but it will be handed over to you after the seal is applied." Might Guy was stunned, then nodded. Kakashi hurried out to report to the 3rd Hokage. The content of the seal technique is of great importance, and Konoha's people may not be at ease if they don't participate. In the yard, Might Guy sat on the ground weakly, and Hyuga Hiyashi stood beside him. Ishihara was thinking about what he had just gained, and said with some regrets, "We just have some time, why don't the 3 of us discuss physical techniques?" Might Guy nodded when he heard this. He also benefited a lot from the communication with Ishihara just now, not to mention the 2 techniques he had already obtained. Hyuga Hiyashi had already been moved after seeing Ishihara's ability, and nodded hurriedly when he heard this. Might Guy is good at Gankwan, which is a strong physical technique. This kind of physical technique is CGBB, using physical abilities to form a powerful physical attack. Hyuga Hiyashi is good at Soft Fist, which is an energy attack by injecting one's own chakra into the enemy's body to attack. And Ishihara is a comprehensive school, using chakra as an auxiliary to strengthen the body for physical attack. The 3 of them expressed their opinions and sat down to discuss. Their ideas collided, and soon they each had inspiration. Hyuga Hiyashi, if you can control the chakra that bursts out from the 8 gates and attack it with Soft Fist, the power is simply unimaginable. Might Guy, impossible, that kind of power is simply uncontrollable. After saying that, the 2 looked at Ishihara at the same time. If there is really someone who can do it, it is only the man in front of him. Ishihara touched his chin and fell into thought. The conversation between the 2 reminded him of a move of Kagaya Otsutsuki. 80 God's Air Attack. The amount of chakra contained in it is enough to destroy mountains and break peaks. However, he still couldn't understand many of the distances of Soft Fists, so he couldn't make an analysis. But he soon thought of Tsunade's strange power, condensing a large amount of chakra on the fist, and then bursting out in an instant. He said as he pondered, "To be honest, it is too difficult to completely control the chakra that bursts out from the 8 gates. And compared to the physical functions obtained in the 8 gates, the attack power of these chakras is still a little insufficient. But if these chakras can be gathered in the fist. No, you don't have to open the 8 gates. What do you think, if the chakra that is enough to condense the tailed beast ball is condensed in the fist in a strange way and blasted out, how powerful will it be?" Hiss. Hyuga Hiyashi and Might Guy took a breath of cold air when they heard it. The explosion of the tailed beast ball itself is a terrifying force that can destroy mountains and break peaks. If the terrifying energy of this explosion is gathered within the size of a fist, the destructive power generated is simply beyond the sky. The 2 felt cold in their hearts and got goosebumps just thinking about it. Ishihara's eyes were frighteningly bright. "You have gained new insights into physical skills through communication with Hyuga Hiyashi and Might Guy, and you have an epiphany. You created the secret technique Hakuba Aikibone. Hakuba Aikibone. Use the skill of super strength to condense chakra above the level of Taijutama on your fist, and blast it out. The attack power is so strong that it is enough to break mountains and break peaks." Ishihara digested the information in his mind and his eyes flickered slightly. This move is very similar to the move used by the captain of the Shinigami to attack Wunderweiss, Aikibone. Not only did he shatter Wunderweiss's body with just his fist, but the terrifying aftermath destroyed a large number of high-rise buildings. The power is so strong that it can be seen. I wonder how much chakra I have to condense to achieve this power. This thought flashed through Ishihara's mind, and he couldn't help but start trying to condense chakra. Buzz. The fluctuation of chakra cannot be concealed. Especially with Hyuga Hiyashi with his white eyes open. What's wrong? Might Guy couldn't help asking when he saw his face change. Ishihara is gathering chakra. The amount of chakra, is very large, he is a little dangerous now, stay away from him. Hyuga Hiyashi looked solemn, walked to Might Guy's side, pulled him up and backed away. At the same time, his eyes were fixed on Ishihara, his expression was extremely solemn. How much chakra does this guy have? This has exceeded the amount of chakra consumed by the huge range of the ultimate ninjutsu. If this continues, his body will definitely not be able to bear it. Ishihara didn't care, but used his almost perfect chakra control ability to continuously compress the chakra and condense it on his fist. The amount of chakra is getting bigger and bigger, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 10 times. This is comparable to the tailed beast ball condensed by some tailed beasts. Such a huge amount of chakra is condensed on the fist, and his fist is not damaged at all. What's wrong with this guy's body? Hyuga Hiyashi looked at Ishihara in horror, and his hair stood up. He couldn't imagine what kind of body could maintain the compression and control of this amount of chakra. It is impossible for humans to do this. Boom! A huge and awe-inspiring aura suddenly came from Ishihara. Hyuga Hiyashi's face changed drastically, and he hurriedly said, "Don't attack here, there are still many people around." Ishihara frowned when he heard this, and then his figure flashed and disappeared directly from the spot. "Where is he?" Might Guy was shocked and hurriedly looked for Ishihara's figure. Hyuga Hiyashi hurriedly used his white eyes to look for Ishihara, and his vision kept pulling and changing, and finally found him on a small hill on the edge of Konoha. Over there, over the hill. At this time, the third-generation Hokage and the leaders of the major families had hurried over. Hearing Hyuga Hiyashi's words, they instinctively looked up at that position. I saw Ishihara swooping down from the air and punching the rock wall of the mountain in an ordinary way. Bang! A dull sound. A huge air circle burst out from Ishihara's fist, spreading like ripples in the air. The rock wall instantly disappeared into a hemisphere with a diameter of 5 or 6 meters. A large number of cracks spread towards the entire mountain. The terrifying cracks penetrated the entire mountain from top to bottom, and it looked like the mountain was cracked. Boom! A violent roar sounded. Then the earth shook wildly, and the ground shook. In the horrified eyes of the third Hokage, the entire mountain was broken. It turned into countless rubble, and fell to the ground in the distance under the impact of the terrifying shock wave. One punch smashed a mountain. Everyone was shocked and lost their voice. There are not many ninjutsu of this power, even in the entire ninja world. It can even be said that there is no ninjutsu that can smash a mountain into pieces like this except the tailed beast ball. The third Hokage and others looked up at Ishihara, their eyes full of passion. They had just met Kakashi, so they naturally knew that Ishihara was improving taijutsu. Taijutsu alone can exert such power. What if it is their family secret technique, forbidden technique? Keep it secret or make a deal with Ishihara, the balance in their hearts has already made a decision. At this moment, bang bang bang, a dull sound exploded from the air. The third Hokage and the others stared in astonishment at Ishihara actually walking in the air. Layers of air circles exploded under his feet, like invisible stairs. As his footsteps got lower and lower, the figure finally landed on the ground as if it had walked out of a legend. Gulp! I don't know who swallowed, and the subtle sound seemed so loud. Everyone realized that the surroundings were so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Not only the third Hokage and the others, but countless people in Konoha witnessed this scene. Boom! Noise, screams, roars, straight to the sky. The whole Konoha was in an uproar, and countless people rushed over here, looking fanatical, as if crazy. The third Hokage and the others were awakened and hurriedly gave orders to stop those people. Then, they looked at Ishihara with fiery eyes. The third Hokage took a step forward and asked anxiously, "What was that move just now?" Physical technique. Ikatsu. Ishihara let out a breath, smiling. After throwing such a punch, I felt a lot more relaxed. One bone. In other words, there may be 2 or 3 bones. Thoughts swirled in the mind of the third Hokage, and he continued to praise on the surface, what a powerful taijutsu. Ishihara nodded, then looked at the person behind him. Uchiha Fugaku, Nara Shikaku, Yamanaka Kaiichi, Akamichi Choza, Aburame Shimi, Inazuka Kuma, etc. All the ninja families in Konoha, including those elite Junin, almost all of them in Konoha are here. But there was no sign of Danzo. Hokage, have you discussed the seal? Ishihara's eyes returned to the third Hokage, and he gently waved his hand to sweep away the dust in the air. The third Hokage nodded and said solemnly, "Since this is your condition, we naturally agree, but we also have a request, that is, this sealed Konoha must be inspected." It was said to be an inspection, but in fact the third Hokage was worried about the hidden dangers of the seal, and also coveted Ishihara's sealing technique. After all, if Konoha mastered it, it would be a powerful means of keeping intelligence secret. Ishihara nodded nonchalantly, not wanting to waste time on this kind of thing. His sealing technique is extremely complicated, and it also involves some knowledge of curse seals. It is not something that ordinary people can understand, let alone imitate. Soon, people from Konoha's sealing class and barrier class arrived. Then Ishihara wrote out the improved sealing technique. It took him nearly half an hour just to write it, and the spell runes even covered the entire courtyard. Looking at the dumbfounded Konoha personnel, Ishihara sneered in his heart. In fact, this is the most orthodox way to use the technique, but he used to like to use it in other ways. Even ninjas who are not proficient in sealing techniques understand the complexity of the technique in front of them. The third Hokage frowned even more. He knew a lot about sealing techniques, and even knew a lot about it. Because of this, he could see how difficult this technique was, and he couldn't help but sigh. I'm afraid Konoha can't control it. Most of the day passed, and the sweaty boundary class finally came to a conclusion. Hokage-sama, after our inspection, the effect of this sealing technique is to protect the designated memory and intelligence information. If the memory is forced to be read, this part of the memory will be damaged. But there is a certain possibility that it will lead to the death of the sealed person. And this spell has the ability to be copied once, which means it can be passed down once. But the copied spell cannot copy itself again within 3 years. Other than that, there are no other hidden dangers. But this seal is too complicated, we can't understand it, and we can't master it. Looking at the mortified barrier class, the third Hokage did not embarrass them too much. He patted their shoulders and asked them to watch from the side. At this point, version 2.0 of the sealing technique has passed Konoha's review and will be used in the entire transaction process with Konoha. Soon, Kakashi was the first to accept the seal, and then Metkai. After the seal was completed, Ishihara also handed over the 3 secret techniques related to the 8-gate Dunjia to Metkai. Hiss. After reading the 3 secret techniques, Metkai suddenly took a breath, with a look of shock on his face. What's wrong? The third Hokage looked at him eagerly, his eyes full of desire. Metkai shouted excitedly. As expected of Ishihara, these 3 secret techniques are so powerful that they have surpassed the 8-gate Dunjia in terms of value. This is youth. What he didn't say was that with the help of these secret techniques, he was sure to open the 8th door in 2 or 3 years. Master the 8-door Dunjia formation. Okay. The third Hokage's smile was not hidden at all. Metkai's words undoubtedly became the best proof of Ishihara's ability to develop secret techniques. For a time, all the families were excited. The clan leaders looked at me and I looked at you, they were all reserved. At this time, Nara Shikaku, who had long made up his mind, took a step forward, looked at Ishihara and said solemnly, "Mr. Ishihara, our Nara family wants to make this deal with you." Several other families immediately regretted it and secretly cursed themselves for being too slow. The third Hokage's expression changed slightly, but he did not make a sound and looked at Nara Shikaku silently. "What deal do you want to make?" Ishihara's eyes lit up and he asked with interest. The secret technique of the Nara clan was something he had decided to obtain before he came. So he was interested. We, the Nara family, hope to use all the secret techniques of the family in exchange for Mr. Ishihara to help us improve the secret techniques and increase their power. Nara Shikaku spoke very slowly, as if he was speaking with a heavy heart. Boom. His words fell on the ears of other families, and they immediately widened their eyes in shock and looked at Shikaku in disbelief. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. He actually wants to use all the secret techniques of the clan. For these non-bloodline limited families, secret arts are their foundation, and handing over secret arts is tantamount to suicide. Nara Shikaku is simply destroying himself. Ishihara was also a little surprised when he heard this. After looking at him for a while, he nodded. Okay, I agree to this deal. Good. Nara Shikaku breathed a sigh of relief, and his face showed joy. He was not afraid that Ishihara would see all the secrets of the Nara clan, but he was afraid that these secrets would not arouse Ishihara's interest. He was smart and had already seen the future trend. Ishihara, unstoppable. He handed the family scroll to Ishihara with a happy face and said solemnly, "Mr. Ishihara, please." People from other families felt that Shikaku was crazy. Nara Shikaku not only handed over the secrets of his family, but also had a happy face. If this is not crazy, then what is it? Even the people from the other two major families in the pig, deer and butterfly combination were a little shocked. But Shikaku didn't say anything to them. No matter how good the relationship between the three major families is, he can't interfere in such matters involving the foundation of the family. Ishihara didn't care about their thoughts. After taking the scroll, he walked into the yard. People from the Nara clan can come in, and others wait outside. Hearing his words, the third Hokage and others could only wait outside. In the yard, Ishihara sat back in his seat, took out the tea set and handed it to Shikaku. "You do it yourself." Okay. Shikaku took it hurriedly, but secretly observed Ishihara. He was very curious about what kind of 117 confidence made Ishihara calm in front of anyone. Although he knew that his strength was not strong. But the Nara clan, the Yamanaka clan, the Aburame clan, and even more clans and people, all mastered control-type ninjutsu. No matter how strong a person is, they can control at least for a moment when they take action. In the heart of Konoha, once Ishihara is controlled, it means failure. But he also understands that with Ishihara's intelligence, it is impossible for him not to think of this. So he really wants to know what Ishihara's confidence is. At this time, Ishihara has opened the scroll and browsed the contents of the scroll. Use Yin Dan chakra and your own shadow to make the shadow materialize and then control it. Looking at the principle of the Nara family's secret technique, Ishihara's eyes lit up. Sure enough, as he guessed, this secret technique uses the special ability of Yin Dan chakra to create a form in the invisible. It sounds simple, but no one in the ninja world can do it. Many people understand the ability of Yin Dan, but no one can use Yin Dan to create a form by themselves. Even Ishihara can't do it now. I'm afraid only people at the level of 6 Path Sage can do it. So he needs to study more secret techniques to understand this principle. Once he understands it, his longevity technique will have the possibility of going further. Ishihara continued to read on and couldn't help but sigh. As expected of a secret technique that has been passed down for hundreds of years, it has a relatively complete system. Not only does it have control ninjutsu headed by shadow imitation, but it also has attack ninjutsu headed by shadow seam. It is only lacking in defensive ninjutsu. Let's try to master these secret techniques quickly. Ishihara began to try to learn. His research method is to observe and analyze the process of performing ninjutsu and secret techniques to discover the essence. But observing others performing secret techniques is not as convenient as performing them yourself, and the observation is more thorough. Watching Ishihara start to form seals in his hands, and it is the seal of the Nara clan's secret technique that he is very familiar with, Nara Shikaku's expression is a bit complicated. The family's secret technique was just given away by himself. Although his mood was extremely complicated and heavy, Shikaku quickly cheered up, trying to keep himself calm, and staring at Ishihara intently. He didn't know whether Ishihara could quickly master the Nara clan's secret technique, nor would he predict the result. What he needs now is calm observation. Analysis. You have read the secret technique Shadow Imitation Technique, and you have mastered Shadow Imitation Technique. You have read the secret technique Shadow Head Neck Binding Technique, and you have mastered Shadow Head Neck Binding Technique. You have read the secret technique Shadow Seam, and you have mastered Shadow Seam. You have read. After digesting the information in his mind, Ishihara looked calm. Although he was a little surprised to master these secret techniques so quickly, he had been accustomed to this learning speed for many years. Then, he began to make hand seals and shouted, "Shadow Imitation Technique." Swish. In an instant, Ishihara felt his shadow, and he could control it easily. Just now, the Yinten chakra did change, and it directly flowed into the shadow, making the shadow have a substance. The process of making hand seals is a bit like a boot program, guiding the Yinten chakra to change the direction of the shadow. Do it a few more times, and you need to understand the change process of Yinten chakra. Watching Ishihara perform shadow imitation technique again and again, skillfully controlling the shadow, Nara Shikaku was stunned. He has mastered our family's secret technique after just one look. This guy's talent is indeed at the monster level. I'm afraid Ishihara has mastered not only the 5 basic chakras, but also yin-yang escape. Shikaku was shocked. That was the legendary yin-yang escape, and it was actually mastered by someone. I wonder what the future of the ninja world will be like. He knew very well that the future of mastering yin-yang escape and not mastering yin-yang escape would be completely different. What's more, Ishihara has that kind of terrifying understanding. For a moment, he even had a feeling. The future of the ninja world, I'm afraid, will all be subservient to Ishihara. At the same time, he was extremely fortunate that he made the most correct decision. Otherwise, he would miss an opportunity to make friends with Ishihara. Ishihara didn't know Shikaku's psychological activities. He was quickly analyzing everything about the shadow imitation technique. First, the concept of shadow imitation is generated in the mind, then Yin-Tun chakra is activated, and then Yin-Tun chakra enters the shadow to imitate, and finally the entity of the shadow is created. For the materialized shadow, when it is linked with other shadows, it can completely control these shadows just like the chakra of the ninja era. This is probably the complete launch mechanism of the shadow imitation technique. Ishihara looked at the shadow behind him that was constantly changing its form, and his expression changed slightly. Let me try the limit of the shadow imitation technique. Buzz. Suddenly, a terrifying chakra burst out from Ishihara's body, constantly increasing the power of the shadow imitation technique. What is he going to do, is it? Shikaku's expression changed, and he suddenly woke up and looked over. There, a huge shadow stood up like a wave, and the silk threads of the shadow spread in all directions, connecting to the shadows everywhere. Shikaku's shadow, the shadow of the tree, the shadow of the building, the shadow of the street outside, and the shadow of the forest farther away. Countless shadows gathered at Ishihara's feet. Black, ink-like shadows gathered at his feet, and then flew up into the sky like an erupting volcano. Then they exploded in the air. It unfolded in the air like a black curtain of light. It was like a huge black cloud appeared in the sky above Konoha. It covered the sky and the sun. Shikaku looked at this scene in horror, got goosebumps all over his body, and fell into a trance. It turns out that shadow imitation can be so strong. Countless Konoha ninjas looked up at the black cloud above their heads, feeling extremely depressed and shocked. The third Hokage and others felt incredible. At the moment when he was covered by the cloud, his shadow was also controlled and his body was bound. Is this still the shadow imitation technique of the Nara family? This is completely different from what they remember. Too strong. I can't move at all. The third Hokage was full of horror. He looked at the people around him who were in the same situation and couldn't help but take a breath. Hiss. Since he controlled so many of us at the same time. It's unbelievable. But this is reality. The shadow imitation technique has controlled almost all the Konoha high-level officials in an instant. If Ishihara attacks them now, it would be almost effortless to destroy them. The third Hokage and others looked at Ishihara's yard in doubt, and regretted that he shouldn't have been so careless. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.